Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Welcome to our weekly tafsir. Today is Monday, the 24th of November, 2025. This is our 57th session. We are on volume 3 of Kitab At Tawheed, chapter 11, page 88, chapter title, Equations Established from the Quran, and this is in relation to Tawheed. Okay, so chapter 11, page 88. In the previous volumes of this series, we set out a series of hadith, including that of the famous hadith of Jibreel. Islam is built upon 5, as well as the prophetic advice given to the companion Mu'adh ibn Jabal upon his departure to Yemen, and many others. Therein, it has been established to a very good threshold of certainty and conviction that with the variety of words and expression used in these sentences, they are stemming from the infallible revelation sent to the finality of prophethood, the Prophet ﷺ. As previously noted, we elucidated the following equation, which expressed the complete conformity of meaning for the sentences that were reported from these hadith, notwithstanding variance. Equation 1. Testifying that there is no God but Allah and that Muhammad is the messenger of Allah equals worshipping Allah and knowing him, equals worshipping Allah and disbelieving in what is beside him, equals worshipping Allah, not associating anything with him, which equals Tawheed, oneness of Allah.
That's from the hadith. We should not really spend much time with that because the Quranic one is really the one who, that's from a hadith, but maybe I'll just comment now. In the future edition, I will slim that out essentially because that's based on various hadith and some of them may be various wording narrated for the same hadith, so it's doubtful which was the original wording when Messenger of Allah. So just go through that quickly.
Okay.
We will not stick very much with that. When you go to the Quranic equation, that's the one which is letter for letter preserved, and that's what we have really exact equations. But these may be regarded as a hint. It's not really strict equations. Okay, carry on.
And we are able to reach more certain truths in addition to confirming the correctness of the aforementioned equation until we arrive upon the degree of absolute certainty and firm conviction by reading the book of Allah as it should be read, by way of a careful and thorough reading. Reading the book of Allah as it should be read is only if it is a reading of absorption and comprehension with a deep enlightened mind, without taking a sentence or verse out of its complete context, or distorting words from their proper places, or deviating from his verses, or contradicting each other while referring what is similar to in it to what is clear. If we do some of that, especially with regards to the following verses, then a number of principles emerge to begin with. So mention Hud of the tribe of, this is from the translation of Quran, mention Hud of the tribe of Ad. He warned his people among the sand dunes. Other warners have come and gone before and after him. Worship no one but Allah. I fear for you that you will be punished on a terrible day. That is the infallible translation of the saying of the Prophet Hud, peace be upon him, and perhaps of the saying of the messengers before him to the nation of Ad, and the messengers to the nations neighboring them, which is set out in the next verse. If they turn away, say, I have warned you about a blast like the one which struck Ad and Samud, when their messengers came to them from all angles, saying, worship no one but Allah. They said, if our Lord had wished, he would have sent down angels. We do not believe in the message with which you have been sent. And those two verses, 46:21, and the second one, 41:13 and 14. These are Hud and Salih. These are for Hud and Salih, and perhaps for all the messengers to Ad and Thamud before them, and perhaps for the messengers to the nations neighboring them. In the next verse, we find recorded the following. All those who worship instead of him are mere names you and your forefathers have invented, names for which Allah has sent down no sanction. Authority belongs to Allah alone, and he orders you to worship none but him. This is the true faith, though most people do not realize it. This is also the infallible translation of the saying of Yusuf alayhi salam. Next there is, your Lord has commanded you that you worship none but him, and that you be kind to your parents. If either or both of them reach old age with you, say no word that shows impatience with them, and do not be harsh with them, but speak to them respectfully. Those two verses, 12:40 and 17:23. The verse here is an address to the Ummah of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The address includes all of mankind and the jinn until he be affirmed until the day of judgment. From these noble verses, which are Meccan, it must be affirmed that Hud and Salih with them and with them a group of messengers. Each of them, and likewise Yusuf and Muhammad ﷺ, have addressed their people, each in the language of his people, with a comprehensive address that cannot be translated into Arabic with complete, precise, and infallible accuracy, except through this phrase, worship no one but Allah. With regards to any additional commands, prohibitions, laws, or etiquettes that are sometimes, though not always, mentioned regarding some messengers, they are necessarily part of what is encompassed by the command to worship Allah. They serve as an explanatory detail or as instances of specifying that overriding general principle.
Mm.
In tandem with this, the Quran has expressed the same comprehensive address. Do not worship other than Allah, with a second expression, which is, worship Allah, you have no God other than Him. Verses such as these are Meccan in origin and include the following. We sent Noah to his people. He said, my people worship Allah, you have no God other than Him. I fear for you the punishment of a fearsome day. That's 759. Here, this is the precise and infallible translation of Noah's statement. Peace be upon him from the language of Noah's people into the eloquent Quranic Arabic. And the translator
In a
is the
summary
one.
form, obviously, because he was talking long things and details, but the basic creed is that. What did he say? Read the ayah again. Worship, no?
We sent Noah to his people. He said, my people worship Allah. You have no God other than him.
Worship Allah, you have no God beside him. Yeah. That's the sense of the fundamental of creed. And then other things like feeling Yawm al-Qiyamah was not, that's excellence. That's excellent. That's sort of the foundation. These are pillars and first floor, second floor, but the foundation is that sentence. And it's repeated by other prophets exactly the same, or another formulation, and then you have to get from them certain equations. The equations will come, but we are listing the various addresses. That's from Noah.
So it says, اعبدوا الله ما لكم من إله غيره.
Yeah.
And the translator is the one who has encompassed all things in knowledge. Next is the verse relating to Hud, peace be upon him, translating his statement into the infallible text of the final revelation, which reads, to the people of Ad, we sent their brother. He said, my people worship Allah, you have no God other than him. Will
Exactly the same word, just
Yeah.
the same phrase. Yeah.
The next verse speaks of what Salih, peace be upon him, said, and again the same phrasing there. To the people of Thamud, we sent their brother Salih. He said, my people worship Allah, you have no God other than him. A clear sign has come to you now from your Lord. This is Allah's she-camel, a sign for you. So let her graze in God's land, and do not harm her in any way, or you will be struck by a painful torment.
The rest of the ayah has nothing to do with the main phrase, but it mentions so that nobody thinks we have cut the context. That's that phrase. Worship Allah, you have no deity beside him. That's the phrase which is repeated by the three. Obviously, they talk other languages. They explained it in much more details. The summary is this, and all of them have exactly the same summary in this series of ayahs. Another place, we have another formulation which must be equal to this, and another place, a third formulation which must be equal to this, and that will bring us the equations. Carry on.
And so those were 765 and 773. The next verse relates to Shu'aib, the statement translated into the infallible text of the final revelation, which reads as follows. To the people of Madian, we sent their brother Shu'aib. He said, my people worship Allah, you have no God other than him.
Exactly the same, like the previous three, like Nuh, Ad, and Thamud.
A clear sign has come to you from your Lord. Give full measure and weight, and do not undervalue people's goods.
These are details. That's not a foundation. Yeah.
Do not cause corruption in the land after it has been set in order. This is better for you if you're believers. And that is 785. A second verse is mentioned next. This time related to Salih, peace be upon him, where he said, to the Thamud we sent their brother Salih. He said, my people worship Allah, you have no God other than him. It was he who brought you into being from the earth and made you inhabit it. So ask forgiveness from him and turn back to him. My Lord is near and ready to answer. That's 1161. There is also a second verse mentioning the name of Shu'aib, peace be upon him. And to Midian we sent their brother Shu'aib. He said, my people worship Allah, you have no God other than him. He do not give short measure nor short weight. I see you are prospering, but I fear you will have torment on an overwhelming day. And that's 1184. Following this, another verse relating to Nuh, peace be upon him. We sent Noah to his people. he said, my people worship Allah, you have no God other than him. Will you not heed him? That's 23:23. Next, this verse provides the wording from a messenger to whom we have not been informed of his name. He says, and sent one of their own as a messenger. Worship Allah, you have no God other than him. Will you not heed him? And that's 23:32.
Yeah.
The
Next.
Quran expressed the same comprehensive address. Do not worship except Allah, precisely with a third expression, which is that there is no God except me, so worship me, with the most complete and perfect wording, as is evident from from contemplating the two Meccan verses set out here. We have, and this is the verse, we never sent any messenger before you, Muhammad, without revealing to him there is no God but me, so worship me.
Mhm.
This
So
is
this is
all.
another way that all messages have this, but is another order. Yeah. Okay.
This is also certainly for all messengers, including Moses, peace be upon him, to whom it was specifically addressed. So this is the when he spoke to him, I am Allah, there is no God but me, so worship me and keep up the prayer so that you remember me.
Etc. Yeah, we mentioned this ayah very frequently. Yeah.
Okay, just to give references, there's 23, 32, 21, 25, 20, and 14. 2014 for listeners. Quran expressed the same comprehensive address, precisely with a fourth expression, which is, we sent a messenger to every community saying, worship Allah and shun false gods. So, ibudullah wajtanibu taghut and shun false gods. Among them were some Allah guided, misguidance took hold of others. So travel through the earth and see what was the fate of those who denied the truth. That's 1636. Once again, the Quran expressed the same comprehensive address. Do not worship Allah except precisely with a fifth expression, which is to worship Allah and do not associate anything with him, as is evident from contemplating the next two verses, the first of which is Meccan, the latter from Medina. Your Lord has commanded that you should worship none but him, and that you be kind to your parents. If either or both of them reach old age with you, say no word that shows impatience with them, and do not be harsh with them, but speak to them respectfully. And أَلَا تَعْبُدُوا إِلَّا
إلا
إِيَّاهُ.
إلا الله. لا.
It says إِيَّاهُ in this one?
Yeah, this is the
Yeah,
reference,
in
except
reference,
him,
yeah, yeah,
that's
yeah.
him, that's which is Allah, meaning Allah is referring to Allah.
And that's 1723. And next verse, worship Allah, join nothing with him, be good to your parents, to relatives, to orphans, to the needy, to neighbors, near and far, to travelers in need, and to your slaves. God does not like arrogant, boastful people. And that is وَاعْبُدُوا اللَّهَ وَلَا تُشْرِكُوا بِهِ شَيْئًا. Don't worship with him, associate anything with him. That's 436. Next section, a hadith upon the topic. It is further reaffirmed by what the seal of the Prophet of Prophet Sallallahu stipulated to the Ansar on the pledge of Aqaba. I stipulate for my Lord, the Mighty and Sublime, that you worship him and do not associate anything with him, and for myself that you protect me from what you protect yourselves, your
That's
children,
Bayat
and your
al-Qaba.
women, from. Such has been cited in the corpus of a hadith in a long, comprehensive account set out in Dalail al-Nabuwah. This is from Dalal al-Nabuwah. Muhammad ibn Ja'far ibn al-Haytham narrated to us, he said, Muhammad ibn Ahmad ibn Abi Awam narrated to us, my father narrated to me, Muhammad ibn Ibrahim ibn Yasar narrated to us from Abu Ishaq al-Sabi'i, from Ash-Sha'bi, from Abdul Malik ibn Umayr, from Abdullah ibn Amr, from Uqayl ibn Abi Talib, and from Muhammad ibn Abdullah ibn Akhi al-Dhuhri, from al-Dhuhri, he said, when the Mushrikeen intensified their hostility towards the Messenger of Allah, sallallahu, he narrated the long and comprehensive account until he reached the discussion with the Ansar in the presence of Al-Abbas. And what the Ansar said, which their speaker concluded by saying, it was said, O Messenger of Allah, take for yourself whatever you wish and set whatever conditions you wish on behalf of your Lord. The Prophet ﷺ said, I set the condition for my Lord, the Mighty and Sublime, that you worship him and do not associate anything with him. Another
So comprehensive summary of all what's required between them and Allah. Okay.
Another comprehensive account of this is to be found in Ash-Shariah by Al-Ajuri. by way of a different channel of narration, but carrying this wording. I stipulate on behalf of my Lord, the Almighty and Sublime, that you worship him and do not associate anything with him, and for myself that you protect me as you would protect yourselves, your children, and your spouses. By way of a third independent channel of narration, the following wording also is also recorded again by Abu Nu'aym al-Asbahani. Sulaiman narrated to us from Ahmad ibn Muhammad ibn Amr ibn Khalid. He said, my father narrated to me. He said, Ibn Lahiya narrated to us from Abu al-Aswad from Urwa ibn Zubair. He said, when the season of Hajj arrived, a group from the Ansar came to perform Hajj. They were from Bani Malik ibn al-Najjar, including Mu'adh ibn Afra and Asad ibn Dhurura. From Banu Dhurayk, Rafi ibn Malik and Dhakwan ibn Abd Qais. From Abu Ghanam ibn Auf, Abu Ubadah ibn Samit and Abu Abdurrahman ibn Thalaba. From Banu Abdul Ash'al, Abu al-Haytham ibn At-Tihan. From Tayhan, and from Banu Amr ibn Auf, Uwaym ibn Sa'idah, the Messenger of Allah came to them, etc. When the Messenger of Allah, peace and blessings be upon him, told them about the prophethood and honor that Allah the Mighty and Sublime had bestowed upon him, and invited them to Islam, asking them to pledge allegiance to him and to protect him, and they would protect themselves and their wealth, they responded positively, believed in him, and they said, set the conditions on behalf of your Lord and for yourself as you wish. He said, I stipulate on behalf of my Lord that you do not associate anything with him, and that you worship him. And I stipulate on behalf of myself that you protect me as you would protect your own selves and your wealth. So this is your commentary. Here I would point out that it seems one of the narrators summarized the account by only reporting by the wording that you do not associate anything with him. Bearing in mind that this would necessarily include the phrasing of that you worship him. By and large, it is a valid approach, as will become readily evident shortly. Taken in the round, these are definitive proofs of the Quran, bearing equivalence in meaning of the following Quranic verses, which can be expressed as أَلَا تَعْبُدُوا إِلَّا اللَّهِ اعبدوا الله ما لكم من إله equals اعبدوا الله ما لكم من إله غيره equals إنه لا إله إلا أنا فاعبدون equals اعبدوا الله واجتنبوا الطاغوت equals اعبدوا الله ولا تشركوا به شيئا, which is do not worship except Allah, which equals worship Allah, you have no God other than him, which equals indeed there is no God except me, so worship me, which equals worship Allah and shun the Taghut, which equals worship Allah and do not associate anything with him. Perhaps we should first hasten to point out that the first statement is purely an expressive conveyance, devoid of additional content which is informative. Likewise, the fourth and fifth statements are expressive, since each consists of two utterances, both of which are foundational. As for the second statement, it is composed of foundational as well as informative elements, though as a whole it remains purely expressive. Similar can be applied to the third statement. Therefore, if we analyze its components or compositions with a formulated equation, we must convert the informative elements into an appropriate foundation form or composed structure. Okay, so I'm not sure exactly what you mean there. So
the expression will come.
Okay.
You cannot equate two things. Like, let's say 5 oranges equal five apples. Let's say the price of 5 oranges equal the price and price as well. The same James. Any equation like that, if the units in both sides are different, the equation is invalid anyway. Yeah.
Regarding the necessity of converting forms of a statement into forms of construction, or even vice versa, for any discourse intended to be studied and from which equations or equivalences are to be derived, it is because the unity of the kind for both sides of any equation or equivalence is a necessary condition for its validity, as even students at elementary school would know. Given this approach, putting forth an equation like this, for dash 10 sheep equals 1 camel, carries no sense in it whatsoever. This is due to the nature of the difference in kind. Naturally, this would differ from an equation expressed as such as the price of 10 sheep in reals in the market of Taif today is equal to
the price of price of one
Price
camel.
one camel in reals in
Yeah.
the same market. In principle,
And
that contains
the equation is correct because price equal price, the same type, the same units.
so it's comparative equivalence, effectively.
Yeah.
In principle, that equation contains a correct formulation, which could, in principle, be verified empirically. Therefore, the proposed equation or equivalence, which Saleh ibn Abdulaziz al-Sheikh mentioned, is utterly invalid. As previously outlined, he said, "This is the command of Allah, the Sublime, to all messengers and all people worship none but Allah."
So
I
think he's the first one to notice something like equation like that. But he made a mistake in the equation because he did not make sure that the units are the same. Let's really discuss that. So he's the inventor of this approach. And based on that, I studied and developed it further. So complete chapter. So that has to be said. He is the first one ever I remember who talks about equation. So putting it in equation, it means this and this. And they show where is his mistake. Carry on.
Is he from the al-Sheikh line?
Yes, he was a sheikh, yeah.
Okay.
And became a minister later and so on. He's very bright and so on, but they succeeded in swallowing him down and corrupting him. Anyway, carry on.
There is no God but Allah. Hence, by equation, al-ilah becomes the one who is worshipped, and the al-ilah, godhood, is al-ibadah. So this is again the same circular argument they used.
Yeah.
Okay. So to continue with your...
Okay, sure. Where is the mistake? Just read exactly what's going on.
Sure. There are several distinct proofs which demonstrate why this formulation is invalid. Each are thus considered in turn below. Proof 1. The beginning of the construction to the phrase worship none elicits a clear prohibition directed at the addressee to refrain from undertaking a specific act or set of actions, hence constructive in formulation. Yet the beginning of the phrase, there is no God deity, relates to negating the very notion of the existence of a being of a certain kind.
It's not a command, it's a statement of fact. And you cannot equal a command with a statement of fact. You have to do a conversion somehow. Yeah?
Okay. In that sense, it is declaratory. Any constructive discourse cannot be equivalent to any declarative discourse whatsoever, as they relate specifically to different kinds or types. It is impossible to derive any correspondence from them at all, as Saleh ibn Abdulaziz al-Sheikh tried to do. The declaration, there is no God but Allah, is a statement born of certainty, eternally true as it exists in the eternal divine knowledge, which is fully known to Allah, the mighty and sublime. Thus it is not identical to Allah's first command to the messengers and to those whom they were sent. Therefore, the commandment is certainty, to bear witness, testify that there is no God but Allah, or to declare that there is no God but Allah. Proof 2. Following this, the statement, I testify that there is no God except Allah, is a declaration by the speaker which formally attests to acknowledging Allah's exclusive divinity. It expresses the firm belief that there is only one true God, deity, who is named in Arabic as Allah. Given this, the subject matter that the testimony sets out is the declaration and belief which is purely informative, relating to Allah's exclusive divinity, a matter which is true and certain for all eternity. The statement doesn't mention worshippers or even worship at all. Neither does it outline any of the inner or outer acts except for the presence of the belief which the one who declares this holds.
Yeah, that's it. It doesn't contain any command, doesn't say what reaction they should be. It's just a statement of fact.
In other words, the speaker gives testimony to its truthfulness and acknowledges it and renders submission thereafter. Moreover, the testimony of I testify that there is no God except Allah is the first and fundamental pillar of Islam. It is a starting point, meaning that al-uluhiyya, divinity, is the primary concept that needs to be defined at the outset prior to anything else. Once this is established, then the following is derived. The definition of al-ibadah is, if it is based or stems from the definition of al-uluhiyya, or B, how the matter of al-ibadah is treated, if that is completely independent from the definition of uluhiyya. Broadly, this is the correct approach to take, not an inversion of it, which presents matters the opposite way around. Do you mind expanding on that a little bit?
Yeah, as it said, what did they expand? Because entering Islam is by testifying this truth, La ilaha illallah. There's no talk about ibadah, non-ibadah, submission, nothing. That's just first the fundamental declaration. So declaration must contain elements and so on who are eternally true. So the definition of divinity is independent and fundamental. If after that he says فَاعْبُدِ اللَّهَ وَحْدَهُ, then this is based on the divinity was well established, and then we have to say what's ibadah then. In
There's a
relation,
command, it's an adjunct.
yeah, it's a command. It's the form. It's a command, but the word used there must be derived and related to that what the declaration of that declaration is, not the opposite. I don't start with ibadah and say God is what is being worshipped. That's making things upside down. We discussed that previously. And the way it is structured here, it shows it again clearly. It shows it also clearly.
Okay.
That the Wahhabi approach is that God is the one who's worshipped, which we proved clearly as a statement of kufr, but also the God is the one who's worthy of worship. There's no mention of worship at all in divinity. Has that to worship or non-worship? So say worthy of worship, what does mean worthy of worship? Ilah is some certain attributes, which has nothing to do with existence or creation, non-creation. Yeah. So again, smashing the Wahhabi definition with either Ilah is ma'bud or Ilah is the one who's worthy of being worshipped and so on, all of these are nonsensical. They are not definition. But they are circular and having internal diseases in themselves as definition. And that's the problem, where it never ends. The problem with the Wahhabi never ends until they see this point clear and then everything clarifies. Good?
Proof 3. Given that the statement, do not worship except Allah, is a nahi, prohibition, and is foundationally expressive, whereas there is no God except Allah is khabar, informative. It is necessary to unify the category. By way of example, this could be done by conversion of the informative statement that there is no God except Allah into the form of amr, a command, testify that there is no God but Allah. From this, the equation would therefore be expressed as la ta'budu illa Allah equals ishhadu la ilaha illallah.
Yeah.
Do not worship except Allah equals testify that there is no God but Allah. Despite this, the formulation wouldn't necessarily be complete, carrying some inherent problems, therefore unreliable, given that it is not strictly speaking derived from a definitive, unequivocal text of the Quran. To contrast this point, the equation which is correct from the Quran is أَلَا تَعْبُدُوا إِلَّا اللَّهِ equals إِنَّهُ لَا إِلَهَ إِلَّا أَنَا فَاعْبُدُونَ. That you worship none but Allah equals indeed there is no God but me, so worship me. The matter which will be elucidated in due course. Notwithstanding this, the approach which Saleh ibn Abdul Aziz al-Sheikh attempted is unique. I am not of the view that he has proceeded in that by anyone. Naturally, his intention was to strive in pursuit of something good, yet he was hamstrung, as many have been before and after him, by the plague-like virus of Wahhabism that befogged his mind. Rather than walk, he was left crawling, nay stumbling, much like what happened to the esteemed scholar Al-Muallimi.
Which we discussed earlier, that's 600 pages of definition of ibadah, which he doesn't need. It's one line is enough.
Perhaps we could.
Remember, we discussed Al-Mu'allim last time, before that. He went back and forth and so because he got stuck in the circularity. If he said, ibadah is that what offered to a divine being. Divine being is the fundamental thing. The problem is solved. No need for even half a page. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. But that's not that. He wanted to justify that you can say these people are worshipping graves. You want to justify that, you get in the devil's kitchen. You never get out safely. That's it. You will never get out safely. Because they wanted to make something ibadah. What mean worshipping grave? They kiss the grave, they dust themselves with the dust of the grave. All that will not solve the problem. Because you do not start with the divinity first. So that's what had to handicap him. So he studied all kinds of worship and actual worship of people of Nuh, and either narrated probably or mentioned in the Quran or in legendary stories and 600 pages without coming to any conclusion at all. Because fundamentally, it's fundamentally wrong. Fundamentally wrong. You don't start with the result and try from the result to get the origin. That doesn't work. That doesn't work. If you start from the result, by negation, you negate the origin. Yes, this is called reduction of the observed, but not the opposite way. It can't work this way, even rationally or logically. But this circularity and this mistake is that what destroyed the whole Wahhabi work and the whole people work. Okay, carry on.
Perhaps we should then return to the preserved phrasing derived from the text of the Quran that we mentioned earlier.
And that's the best, because this is preserved. I know there's no issue about a narration by meaning or mistake of narrator or nothing like that. So this is the one we should stick to.
If we transform the third sentence, indeed there is no God except me, so worship me, into the third person pronoun form, it becomes indeed there is no God except Allah, so worship him, which is equivalent to worship Allah because there is no God deity except Allah.
Because notice that because that the divinity is exclusively of Allah. So the worship is based because of the divinity, as a response to divinity. So we have to deal what divinity is, and then we can check what worship then means.
If we temporarily discard the sequencing relationship expressed by the because, لأنه, we discover that
only temporarily.
We discover that there is two commands set out here. Worship Allah, plus testifying that there is no God except Allah. Take note of the original wording as expressed, there is no God but me, so worship me, is foundational. Thus, when we disregard the sequencing relationship, we were compelled to transform the declarative statement, indeed there is no God except me, into an imperative form. Know, acknowledge, and submit that there is no God except Allah, or rendered more concisely as being, testify that there is no God deity except Allah. From this, the structuring of the sentence would be A, testify that there is no God except Allah, and B, based upon that, worship Allah. Here, this seeks to ensure that each of the components
in the future edition and so on, we will check the word worship, say enslave yourself to instead. That is a better translation. So we don't get confused what other languages use for worship and so on. We use the language of the Quran and this proper translation. Enslave yourself to Allah. That's it. Instead of worship Allah. Worship is a confusing word. We don't know what's venerate or love or all this. It does not make any sense. What makes sense is enslave yourself to Allah. That's I mean, Allah. Okay? That's an improvement in the future, inshallah. Or for this discourse. We discussed that previously. I missed that in this and until that time. I did not give it the full due consideration. I was actually deceived by that old translation say worship or venerate and so on. It doesn't matter what translation is. The Quran came in Arabic, using the Arabic language as developing under the with the guidance and the control of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And it used "i'budu," enslave yourself to. That's it. We have to stick with. What other nations and language translate is secondary, is irrelevant. Okay, so that's one further improvement. Okay. But here, it says the word worship as an abbreviation of enslave yourself to, regarded as equivalent, just to benefit from what we have said in the last 2-3 halaqas. Okay, carry on.
Here, this seeks to ensure that each of the components are of the same nature, which allows for a coherent approach when deriving equations or equivalences. However, the sequencing or causal relationship expressed by the conjunction particle of fa, al-fa', or the word because, لأنه, cannot be completely dismissed if we aim for a fully accurate and integrated.
Now we work the fa, therefore, or because, or something. We work now with what extra flavor it adds to the one side of the equation, at least. So we carry on.
What is required is awareness of this sequencing relationship, as if the statement is purporting to say, know that Allah, worshipping Allah, is necessarily dependent upon testifying to his oneness. One could argue that it is highly likely that this understanding is quite innate to mankind, being an essential truth which is deeply implanted in human nature itself. The verses therefore would serve as a reminder of this reality. Taken altogether, the most accurate interpretation of the wording would be, remember and acknowledge what is already firmly established in your inherent natural disposition, as being knowledge to the level of certitude that worshipping Allah is necessarily dependent upon the testimony of His oneness. This reminder is intended to clarify concepts, to guide rational thought, and firmly shut the door against doubts and misconceptions, particularly those which have been fostered by the sect of Wahhabism. The third sentence, indeed there is no God except me, so worship me, can be simplified into an equation and an additional reminder. Equation. أنه لا إله إلا أنا فاعبدون equals اعبدوا الله plus أشهد إنه ما لكم من إله غير الله, which is translation, indeed there's no God but me, so worship me equals worship Allah plus testifying that there is no God deity except Allah.
With additional ways of God, that one is based on the other, we have to add this as a flavor. But this is the component, at least. Components are not translated correctly. Yeah. So we are commanded to testify for this absolute truth. This is just an act of testification, meaning acknowledging that faith and in acceptance and submission to that acknowledgement, just pure rational acknowledgement. And and another command, worship Allah, which we have to flesh out what is the details, or enslave yourself to Allah. But enslave yourself to Allah is based, and because there is no deity, because you have already testified there is no deity to Allah. This is implied by that by necessity. But because you are a free agent, you can accept or reject the command to worship is a real command, because you could still testify that no deity outside. I'm not going to enslave myself. I'm rebellious. I'm a shaitan. It's very well possible. So they separated that, but it should not have been the proper sequence. Testify there's no deity. Please testify. He doesn't deny that, but he decided to rebel. So he's not submissive. He's not enslaving himself. He's acknowledging that Allah is the deity that created everything, but he says, I'm not accepting God to be the sovereign who commands. I command myself. I'm free. That's what the Satanists say. Satan is the first revolutionary. Okay, carry on.
The reminder being, remember and acknowledge that what is already firmly established in your fitrah, a certain knowledge.
Or established by a very complex, almost mathematical proof, whatever it is, but it is in the right, is established in the fitrah. You just need to activate it out, and all the proofs and development are really essentially fleshing it out in a irrefutable, almost mathematical form. That will be the evidences for the proof of God and so on, going to infinite regress and all these things, and the complex metaphysical argument, which many of them are the same exactly level like mathematics and even better than mathematics. So that's established. But recognize that, remind yourself of that, either by driving it the hard way or just feeling it inside yourself immediately. Based on that, enslave yourself to the one who is done by necessity because of the witness, that is there no deity, and the deity is one creates and owns and so on. So he's the absolute owner, the absolute sovereign, the absolute commander. So what your response should be, enslave yourself. Because he's the owner and the complete owner, then you are the owned one. He is the complete and supreme commander, then you are the commanded one, the one who has go physically down on his face in sujood, and internally in obedience. Yeah, that's how it works, and that's what will give the foundation of Islam. If you have done that, then you are entered Islam. Then the action, the specific action, then you may fail, not fail, repent. That's all secondary, but it's the foundation. If that foundation is there, bye-bye, you are a shaitan, or you are an atheist. You don't acknowledge the reality, or you miss to see the reality, or miss to test your inner nature by immediate perception that I'm finite and limited, so there's an infinite and limited being. That's it. Or you prefer to go the very long, complicated metaphysical proof. Fine, you can do that. But this is, you have missed it and you became an atheist. That's obviously one type of the disease. But worse than that, you acknowledge that, and then you say that the shaitan is worse than atheist, because the fact is known to him, but he still rejected to do the proper response befitting to this fact, which is He's the ultimate owner, so you are the ultimate owned, you are the slave. He's the ultimate commander by necessity. You are then the one who under obedience to absolute command. There's no other way to respond to the Shahada or to this fundamental reality of the universe, most fundamental reality of the existing reality around us, which we call universe or reality, whatever it is that there is a supreme being which is necessarily existing, who is a free agent and who is the absolute owner and the absolute commander. That's it. This is the fundamental fact of the reality around us. Otherwise, the reality cannot be understood, become magic, become ununderstandable. There's no difference between being in a mental institution outside. Both are right or wrong. Nobody can determine unless you acknowledge this fact. Ultimately, that will be the metaphysical proof in all detail. But what's your response to it? It must be by necessity. Enslave yourself completely. But because you are a free agent, you may rebel. Like the devil is a free agent, he rebels. And this is worse than kufr than not acknowledging this fundamental reality. Because not acknowledging it could happen because they have some problem in your mind or derivation, or you decided, no, I will not rely on fitra. I will go to the complex metaphysical proof, and it's so complex that you did not do it properly and you got stuck in it. And so, no, there's no God because of that. That's very bad, but this is maybe having some excuse in some aspect. But the other one, the satanic way, that have absolutely no excuse, because it's irrational and unthankful for the one who created you out of nothing, etc. We discussed that obviously in matter of etiquette and taste and the meaning of the taste of belief and the sweetness of heart and all these things. That comes only if you enslave yourself, not just by testifying that he exists. That's not enough. You have to do and accept and push yourself into sujood, into spiritual and physical sujood. Then you start perceiving the sweetness of faith, the meaning of that life, and get in synchronicity with the universe and with the reality. Yeah. And talking is a language similar to spirituality and Sufi in some respect, but that's really, if you do it in a rational way, the way you're doing it, you get spirituality and mystic and so on the correct way, which is based on rationality and firmly joined with it, not separate from it. Carry on.
The reminder being, remember and acknowledge that what is already firmly established in your fitrah as certain knowledge that worshipping Allah is necessarily dependent upon the testimony of His oneness. As for the second statement, worship Allah, you have no other deity other than Him, its interpretation is to worship Allah because there is no God deity for you other than Allah. If we repeat the second statement,
and again, I said the word worship is a bad word. We should have enslave yourself. Then it will be clear to the Arab, to us as Arabic and also the non-Arabs. That's it. Actually, what the Quran says. It's not use the word worship, which may be honor or respect. It means something much more deeper and more fundamental, which is expressed. I think we should invent this word in the next translation. Instead of worship, we say enslave yourself to. Will be the best way to translate. But this is for future improvement, inshallah. But we know now that we have discussed that several times, several halaqah now. I hope it sits in everyone's mind. But in an initial discourse with anybody else and so on, you can use the word worship. I say, mind you, the word worship is an English word which does not give the reality of the word used by the Quran. Enslave yourself to Allah. Fully and comprehensively. Yeah. Okay, carry on.
If we repeat the second sentence with what we did earlier, with the third sentence letter by letter, we arrive at the following simplified equation, namely, Ibudullah ma lakum min ilahin ghayruhu equals Ibudullah plus Ishhadu innahu ma lakum min ilahin ghayrullah, which is worship Allah, you have no God deity other than Him, which equals...
And then a statement, the creation statement, to turn it in a command, ishhadu, so that all of them are the type command, of the same type, the same units, so that we can later have some reasonable equations. Yeah?
Which equals worship Allah, plus testify that there's no God deity for you other than Allah.
And those two sentences, all of them are commands, not just one declaration from the same type. The riyal, or dollar. Not a dollar and the number of camels. That doesn't work. Okay? Because as you said, an equation makes only sense if both sides of the same type, the same units. Otherwise, it doesn't make any sense. That they agree numerical. What does it mean agree numeric? Which numerics? Are we talking about bushels, or take about kilograms, or take about dollars? What is it? Both sides must be the same. Otherwise, the question doesn't make any sense. It's nonsense. Okay? That's the reason we converted from a command plus declaration into a command, and the declarations that make the declaration. Then we have command and command. And then we can go proceed one step further. Mm-hmm.
The reminder would be
the equations. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
The reminder would be, remember and affirm what has been established in your innate natural disposition as certain knowledge, that the worship of Allah.
Or actually, I should add here the future also, or establish the difficult way by a complex metaphysical proof or something like that. But it is established. It is definitely by itself well established. We should not fall in the mistake that many people, especially referring to Ibn Taymiyyah, like Brother Paul Williams, when he discuss about proof of God and so on with some people, say Ibn Taymiyyah say it's known by fitra. By fitra is known, but is immediate perception. But this is not really a proof to the level which you expect of proof, like a mathematical proof. But this can be developed. There's really a proof which is a metaphysical proof, which is irrefutable.
Have you done that? Because I always assume fitra is something you can't quantify.
No, this fitra that you perceive it, but then you can when you study yourself and your internal perception and the fundamental concepts and develop it, but it takes a very long development. You ultimately end by necessity, the necessity existing being, and this one cannot be a deaf, blind, dead nature. It has to be a free agent, and that's what we call Allah, the deity. And by necessity, or by the proof of unity of Allah, we made it. Is rationally compelling. Various proofs are there of various types. So it's only one entity, and there must be one. So maximum one, minimum one is exactly one, and this is what Allah. So that's you can prove, but it take maybe a volume. Fitra will give it to you immediately on a silver plate, and most people will be happy with that, and they will perceive it right away. The structure of the soul and the mind is so that there's one complex volume of development, which is developed to that level only recently, because it needs thousands of years of mathematical development, studying limits, controlling limits, not falling in paradoxes and all these things. The fitra give it to you immediately.
I don't know. I'm not sure. Maybe we're talking about different definitions, but I don't find fitra in any way, shape, or form to be of any substance. It's almost like saying just trust me.
No, you feel it. If you close your mind and look in yourself, you know you are finite, you are limited. Then you immediately say, I am finite and limited. What does this mean? There must be something infinite and absolute. Otherwise,
there's still a stretch. I mean, in itself, it still seems too much.
If you wanted to look at it as a proof, it is not a proof, but you perceive it. That's what I mean.
But again, I mean, because the thing is, if you want to rope in atheists, you have to make.
What I mean, Ibn Taymiyyah's claim that fitra is enough, you don't need a proof, is a mistake. No, it's not enough.
No, that is genuinely retarded.
Yeah,
that is just basically it's almost like blind inheritance following, just being in a place and just saying. It's exactly like discussing with Christians. They used to say, "I feel it in my heart," or proof is in the pudding. That's just a cop out.
I know. But
that is not worthy of modern society.
Definitely, but I say that fitra is basically about the existence of Allah. This fundamental, not that it's Trinity or not Trinity or Isa messenger or God or Muhammad. Just this fundamental fact of reality, the existing reality around you. You know that you are limited by necessity. You have a start and so on. So by necessity, something has started you, but you perceive it directly without fleshing the argument in a complex way. But if you want to flesh it, it's fleshable. And it can be fleshed to the level of mathematical precision. But you have got it in the structure of the mind built in, a gift. And that's what the mithaq al-fitra. Am I not your Lord, your supreme commander? They said yes. That's obviously mithaq al-fitra. They were not in a conscious state anyway. And that's the reason this is not enough in Yawm al-Qiyamah to be, and that's how Wahhabi are mistaken. This means shirk. You are not excluded by ignorance. You don't need a messenger for that to avoid shirk. No, you need. And then when they come and say that, you don't say Yawm al-Qiyamah, we have unaware about that. That's to tell Yawm al-Qiyamah, I gave you an excellent head start. So you cannot say I didn't have an excellent head start. And then I gave you the messenger who bring the immediate, actually bringing the messenger, bring the evidence which everyone can deal with, the complicated metaphysical proof Not everyone can deal with it. Instead, the messenger bring more than just its proof. By proving that they are messenger, by necessity they are be sent by the one who are behind space and time and nature. So that's a proof of deity and proof of the message and many things in the one go. So it's much better than the metaphysical proof, which is unlimited, the existence of the divine. So that's the one which you cannot escape the question and punishment, not just that you have an excellent head start. So, thank you. Yeah, I know. You're graceful. You're generous. You gave me a head start. You do not create my mind blank without any fundamental structure which perceives that directly. Yeah, that's the meaning of it, the fitrah. So it's not enough for the punishment of Qiyamah in contradiction to the stupid Wahhabi. No, that's not enough. But it is Yawm al-Qiyamah, you be told, you see, I gave an excellent head start, and still with all this head start, you failed to benefit from that when the messenger came. The blame will be not to follow the messenger after he showed all the evidences. Yeah, that's this reason of punishment. Not that you did not activate the fitrah, because that is not sufficient to make you liable of punishment, but liable of being chided, that you ignored this great gift and did not give it due consideration. That's it. That's an understanding of the meaning of Mithaq al-Fitrah. And the statement after that said, didn't you witness that? And then Yawm al-Qiyamah, you don't say we were unaware about that. You are intrinsically, internally aware. All what you need is just to activate that. But you fail to do that, despite all what I gave to you. So it's chiding. It's forcing him to lament about that, but it's not the reason for punishment. The reason for punishment is rejecting the messenger.
Yeah. What about acts other than shirk and tawheed? So, like, for example, if you murder someone...
No, we don't wait to go there. That's the issue of Iman al-Kufr, so leave that away. That will divert our attention from the main issue. That is what Yawm al-Qiyamah about. And these acts also if you receive it from the messenger. That's it.
So
How do you know that how do we know that this act is punishable by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? We have to make it a message from the messenger. That you feel disgusted by murder and killing babies and so on, that's nice and so on, that's fitrah, but that is not enough for accounting Yawm al-Qiyamah.
So basically, like, murderers won't get punished then, like, who didn't have the Risala.
Who?
So the murderers who didn't receive the revelation...
Who I didn't, your voice is very low. Who is not punished before getting the Risala?
Murderers who didn't receive the revelation.
What is this word, murderer? I don't...
murderer, muqatil.
Yeah, it is no murder. It's not defined yet. It's not defined. It's defined as a physical act, terminating someone's life. But being punishable murder need to be binding information that's punishable from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's what makes it a sin.
Okay, that's not
yeah. The principle is very clear, like the sun in the sky. Just apply it consistently, and then you're in safe ground. You may be chided, your inner soul and so on rebelled against that, and they made that in you, and still you ignore that. But that's only for chiding, and so you lament your bad behavior. That's all. But the punishment in hell and so on, no. Only if you have. The messenger told you that's prohibited, and Allah will punish for it. Now that's it. And obviously prove that he's a messenger and we receive the message correctly. All of these fine details of when the messenger is in authority is enshrined in the ayah. وَمَا كُنَّا مُعَذِّبِينَ حَتَّى we cannot punish, will never punish unless we have sent the messenger. Yeah, the fundamental principle is clear. Apply it everywhere. Don't waver because murders you feel it is nasty and bad. Yeah, you may feel whatever you feel. That's not what will lead to the hellfire in Yawm al-Qiyamah.
Also, the greater issue is around creed, and if you're not able to establish your creed in the first place, without sufficient proof.
But it doesn't prevent Allah to chide you and rebuke you Yawm al-Qiyamah that you did not acknowledge and benefit of my grace. I gave you an absolutely marvelous head start, and still you are miserable. You were miserable. But punishment, in the sense of proper punishment in the hellfire and so on, only if you have got the necessary knowledge and you did not comply with it, and you did not repent after that within the time of repentance over all these conditions, which are very lengthy, but I think we know them. So we don't need to go into repeating that 100 times. You have the fundamental rules and build on that step by step. You don't need to ask anybody. But establish the fundamental rules and hold them with iron fist. Don't waver. Don't waver. If you waver, then you get in confusion. All secondary issues, refer them back to the fundamental ones and make sure the fundamentals are established with absolute certainty, and then you are in the safe ground. And that's what most people do not do, and they go in never-ending cycles and circles without any end. Yeah? But we are now the most fundamental statement, the most fundamental fact, which the first one and the absolute one to be acknowledged. And still, the fitrah alone is not enough, but you have an enormous head start with the fitrah, and most people will rely on that, and they are right to rely limited to this core issue itself. That you feel immediately some kind of a deity, and one deity, an overwhelming one. You conclude that just almost by fitrah. But you can flesh it out, I said, almost mathematical level proof in metaphysical consideration, which had been done through history part by part, and some more lucky to develop it further, some less lucky, some got confused along the way because it's a very complex, because you're going to the most fundamental and elementary things. So you have to look at them carefully, make sure that there is no mental optical illusion, no semantic illusion. I give examples, semantic illusion, which a sentence may fool you. You think there's something, is nothing. It's just utter impossibility. It's just utter nonsense. But it's clothed in such a way that you may get fooled by the capability of the language to be deceptive. Yeah, and I gave examples, but we don't go down in that deep philosophy. We have already got a good share of that. Now we are in applying it in the message of the messenger to the people, and how it is summarized, and the demolishing the Wahhabi obsession with the ibadah regarding somehow fundamental. It's not fundamental ibadah. It is derived from and related to the previous defined and well-established the issue of divinity. Yeah.
Okay. Continuing from the congruence of the second and third statements, we necessarily deduce that ما لكم من إله غيره غير الله equals لا إله إلا الله, which is you have no God deity other than Allah, equals there is no God deity except Allah. Or in other words,
this declaration. So we can equate them. Yeah.
Or in other words, the term relating to you, plural in Arabic, lakum, does not alter the reality of uluhiyah, divinity, in any way, because it is an intrinsic attribute of Allah. It is established that a certain being is a God deity for a people, then it is established that he is a deity, God, by his intrinsic nature, and thus he is the deity.
I'm discussing that because someone said the phrase contain lakum as if the addressee are having participation. No, because the phrase is in form of address to people, not a witness, a neutral one addressed to nobody. That's the reason the lakum linguistically is necessary there. It's not related to any command or anything like that, or that the humans and the addressee are participating in the definition of divinity. No, it's not like that. But the phrase of the language, the formulation of phrase in that form, does not mean that it is for you or not for others. It's just that there is no deity except him. But it's for me, because the messenger started this with Abdullah, worship Allah. That's command to you. And then there is no deity except him, but it's related to you, and they have no other deity beside him, because the reality is there's no deity beside him. So that's the way to be read, connecting the command to them with the intermediate with lakum, and then with the fundamental fact. And the intermediate one with the lakum and so on is the same like the fundamental fact, but phrased in a form of address. Although it's not a command, it is a declaration. That's the way speech is formulated in language. That's also one direct way where sometimes language can become deceptive if you are not careful to recognize what's going on there. Yeah.
Conversely, the true God is the deity by his intrinsic nature of all peoples, for all peoples, indeed for all beings, and even regardless of the existence of anything else at all. Essentially, there is nothing new in this overall. Rather, it is a further confirmation of what has already been established, which is that the concept...
We remember once we discussed the hadith, Musa asked Allah, teach me a dhikr which nobody else is special for me. Say La ilaha illallah. Say all your creation say that. What's special in that? Say this is the biggest fact. the biggest reality. Allah witnessed him that is no deity himself, continuous and eternally. And all in the language of the hadith, which is again a metaphorical language. If heaven and earth are put on a scale, and La ilaha illallah on another scale, meaning the importance and value, Allah illallah will outweigh them. So that's the best that you can say. There's an eternal fact. Allah is witnessing that continuously. And those in the Quran say, Shahid Allahu annahu la ilaha illa huwa. He is witnessing that. When? Eternally. From eternity to eternity. Every microsecond of time. Continuously. His being is a witness of that. That's the most fundamental fact of the reality. Otherwise, there would be no reality. It would be an impossibility. Okay? So that's it. But when you're addressing people, you have to switch in with an intermediate as if it is that ilah is for them. Just because you are starting with a command to them, then that ilah for them. But this is actually the ilah is by necessity, by itself. They exist or do not exist. But you don't address people this way. Nobody will understand you. The way it says, Abdullah, malakum, there is no deity for you, as if it's for you. But this is because the speech flows properly and attracts the attention this way. You don't go abrupt, Abdullah, there's only one deity. You could say that, but this one is more appealing. As if this ilah is for you alone, secluded for you. It is not, but it is this way, it attracts your attention. Appeal to your emotion and to your selfishness and self-orientation. Get you on board. The other one may be just cold fact, does not get you on board. No? You see why it is rhetorical device. It is not that there's no deity, no other deity for you except him. Is for other people maybe another deity, or maybe other deity can have two deities. No, it does not mean that. It's just getting you on board. It makes you identify yourself and your deity being the fundamental one, which is the absolute deity for everyone, and even for nobody, and for himself itself. For himself.
So it's more of a rhetorical device. And
it's a rhetorical device so that the command is go to the basic fact with a reasonable flow, which keep you engaged. Rhetorical device.
And what they're saying, the mistake is to make it mafhum mukhalafa, as in by opposite understanding it would mean.
These are mistakes coming from not being strictly rational and logical, or being deceived by certain linguistic devices. Because the language have the capability to deceive you. In a certain situation, it could be quite shocking when you flesh it out. Because how come that I considered that to be an issue? It's a non-issue. I'll give you an example. I was thinking about the last few days. Usually, I remember when we were discussing Germany with various people about philosophy and so on. Say the fundamental problem in philosophy is to answer the question: how come that there's something rather than nothing? That's rather there's something rather there's nothing. In that formation, it looked like amazing that there's anything exists. But if you flesh it out correctly, and then it is essentially saying how is there is something which is, we say not nothing, mix not nothing with the word not, which is not nothing meaning something. How come that something is something? But this is a tautology. Something is something. Everything is itself. You don't need to ask. This is a tautology. Essentially, this question meaning a tautology true, all is true. Any tautology is water is water. That is true. It doesn't say anything, doesn't give you any extra knowledge, but it is true. It's eternally true. So the fundamental problem, the phrase that is the fundamental problem of the philosophy, allegedly struggling to solve it for thousands of years, there's no problem. It is just being amazed that tautology is tautology. That's equal. A thing is equal itself, which should not be amazed. This is a fundamental built in the structure of reason. It's another phase of the principle of contradiction, which is all rationality goes back to the principle of contradiction. But formulated in such a way that it looks amazing. That's one type of other deception. Not deception that you have something which is impossible and presented as if it exists and possible. No, here there's something which is fundamentally and necessarily true all the time is presented as being amazing and shocking. It's not. Just look at the formulation. How come that there's something which is not nothing? Not nothing is something. How is it that something is something? Muhammad is Muhammad. Rash is Rash. And no outcome. Without that, reason and perception would collapse. No reason exists. So if we are having any rational discourse, we by necessity assume that anything is equal to itself. A is equal to A.
Okay. Somebody just made a comment. Is it worth writing a mathematical account on isomorphisms as a process in the Quran?
Maybe if someone working with that, let us see what he means and so on, how it is.
I mean, I don't even know what that means. But
if you have the project, start and then write it down, then it will develop further.
So the person who asked this question, if this is something that you are familiar with or you've looked into, there are...
Maybe we're not with the word. I know isomorphism in mathematics. The two structures, two things are isomorphic, so you can replace the one with the other one because the interrelation and the mapping of one of it is going both ways, preserving all these interrelation. That's what you call usually isomorphism. Two things which appear to be different, but in their structure and internal interrelation are essentially the same. In other words, it's two different representations of the same thing. Or they're different. The representation is different. There's some differences, but the fundamental aspect, the fundamental structure and interrelation are the same in both. So if abstract from the representation, it is the same.
I mean,
there's various representation you can enjoy.
So he said that I can send you some notes. I mean, by all means, send notes. You can join Telegram and send them. Also, other people, if it's something substantial.
Where can I give example? For example, let me give an example where you could have, for example, define matrices. Let's say n by n, 3 by 3 matrices, and define how to multiply them and so on. But then you find they are actually some kind of abstract representation of transformations inside a three-dimensional space, either usually rotation type. And then you will be surprised later to see that these numbers are actually sine and cosine of certain angles. So you have a representation, you have like a geometric representation, you have pure abstract numbers. Concerning interrelation and the way to compose and the way to calculate, they represent the same thing abstractly. But you look there, it is a matrix numbers. Just numbers in parentheses ordered in a certain way. Has nothing to do with rotation or anything with space. You look to space rotation can be represented this way. So that thing is isomorphic. For example, if the one who is writing that should give example like that so the reader understand what he's talking about, and also think
just one additional. No, he says. No, I thought
so isomorphism is not identity, not identical, but they share certain interrelation that they are essentially the same thing in matter of interrelation and fundamental structure, but different representation. Definitely, the matrix that I write on a electronic file is not the rotation of space, which I can realize building a three-dimensional frame out of steel and let it rotate. This is vastly different. There's abstract numbers in an electronic file, but they have isomorphic relation.
But what we could do is this. I mean, if the brother wants to join the Zoom sometime, you can discuss directly. Also, people like Sapiens.
But first, before discussing, develop it until it's clear in your mind, and then we go from there.
Yeah. Well, for example, I can read out what's been said. So, and isomorphism, yes, mathematically. So the idea is that when Almighty God says that everything created from pairs is an equivalence relation of structures, our judgment comes in pairs too.
Flesh that out more and give examples. That's what. Just a general. Again, this is what you are talking is essentially poetry. Is not really knowledge. But until you give an example and see how the isomorphisms work and so on, then it becomes you are referring to something substantive, which is not just a nice wording.
Okay. So anyway,
which appeal to your emotion and confuse imagination. No, it appeal now to rational competence and comparing things properly.
Inshallah. So look, this is probably beyond the scope of today's halaqah, but you're more than welcome to. So we have our
absolutely. Yeah. But I'm
addressing the question here. So we have a Tawheed halaqah. If you join it on the Zoom, you can always discuss afterwards. Also, we have our weekly Q&A, tafsir. You can join and discuss that, or if it's so you can present what you mean. It's probably easy to have a dialogue. If something's substantive, the professor can give some guidance. There's also other people, for example, Sapiens are very good. Sapiens for that's Uthman, Dr. Islam.
But that's perfect what you're saying, Raj. But the brother is talking about something specific. Yes, but develop so that it is more clear in your mind You have enough examples. So when you talk to me, say, I know what you mean, what you internally mean, because the linguistic expression may be misleading. I know because various examples. Then you can go from there and say, no, it is like that. I think it's like that. No, you say, no, I correct you on this point. And by the interaction, you develop it further. That's the way to go.
Okay, I'm not going to entertain any more on this because you can join the Zoom, you can discuss directly because I can refer to any resources, start routing. We're doing a Tawheed halak at the moment, and I don't want to sidetrack too much. We have a Zoom, it's open to anyone. The details in the description. So this is the best probably for now, inshallah. Okay, proceeding. Rather, it is a further confirmation of what has already been established, which is that the concept of uluhiyya is an expression of the intrinsic attributes of that being called God, regardless of the existence of other beings, their actions, and their relationship to the being in question or their absence. Thus, its definition is specifically devoid of any explicit or implicit reference to the actions of created beings, whatever their designation, and even to the existence of those beings altogether. Uluhiyya encompasses intrinsic attributes and consideration of the being in question. If it is eternal, then it is God in eternity, and it is God as long as it exists. If it is generated or contingent, then it is God from the moment of its generation or occurrence, and it is God as long as it exists. The last four equations are I'budullah plus Ishhadu innahu ma min ilahin ghayrullah equals I'budullah plus Ashhadu innahu la ilaha illallah equals I'budullah plus Ijtanabu Taghut equals I'budullah plus la tushriku billahi shay'a. Translation: worship Allah plus testify there is no God deity other than Allah equals worship Allah, testify that there is no God deity except Allah equals worship Allah plus shun the Taghut equals worship Allah plus do not associate anything with Allah. From this, it necessarily and inevitably follows ishhadu an innahu ma min ilahin ghayruh equals Allah illa Allah.
Only the third one with Ijtanibu Taghut, I did not expand. I have to expand on that in the future, inshallah.
Okay.
I will not expand now because the Taghut has a specific meaning, and it seems to be not all deities and others a partner at Taghut, but if you shun the Taghut, then all other deities are excluded automatically. But it needs a nice expansion on what is Taghut. Ibn Abdul Wahab said Taghut, everything which is obeyed and worshipped, again, use the word worship beside Allah. It does show that definition must be faulty because there must be some definition independent from worship and so on. So what is Taghut? And that has to be made precise. And why the specific word Taghut and used in the Quran only in few places. And that needs an expansion. It will take maybe a page or something, will be inserted later. And when it's finished, I will maybe offer it in a suitable occasion which comes. Maybe when you get to Hakimiyya, this is a place where Taghut will be addressed.
Okay. From this, it necessarily inevitably follows Ishhadu innahu ma min ilahin ghayrullah equals Allah illa ilaha la ilaha so it should be Allah illa ilaha la ashhadu innahu. I don't know, has that been mixed up in the format?
What's that? Is something
maybe it's been mixed up in the format. So la ilaha illallah ashhadu la ilaha illallah. That would be more. I think maybe it could be a formatting. I'll have to speak to the publishers.
Possibly.
Okay. Yeah. Equals اجتنبوا الطاغوت equals لا تشركوا بالله شيئا. So translation: testify that there is no other God deity besides Allah. Testify that there is no God except Allah. So it must be shahada. Equals shun the taghut, which equals do not associate anything with Allah. But the sentence testify that there is no God deity except Allah and testify that there is no deity other than Allah are equivalent and are precisely the same. This bears the same equivalence to do not set up another God deity besides Allah, or do not ascribe any aspect of divinity to any other than Allah. These are entirely equal to the statement shun the taghut equals do not associate anything with Allah. All of this necessarily requires the definitive conclusion that the matter of shirk billah, associating partners with Allah, The shirk al-kufr, which is the major shirk, that's the nullifier of Islam, expels from the Islamic millah anyone who had previously entered it, is exclusively therefore to set up another god deity alongside or besides Allah. This is supported and confirmed by the text of the Quran, namely لا تجعل مع الله إله آخر.
إله آخر.
So I'll give you the full translation. So set up no other god beside Allah, or you'll end up disgraced and forsaken. And that's 1722. It is further confirmed once again by way of another verse, which is, Prophet, this is some of the wisdom your Lord has revealed to you. Do not set up another god besides Allah, or you will be thrown into hell, blamed and rejected.
That's
وَلَا تَجْعَلُوا اللَّهَ
the series in Surah Al-Isra. The series starting with Tawheed, and then good to the parents, avoiding bloodshed. The only essentially expanded 10 commandments of the Old Testament, and then concluding again by repeating the first one, which وَلَا تَجْعَلُوا اللَّهَ إِلَهًا آخَرَ. At the beginning, you will be forsaken and disgraced, and the end, you will be ending in hellfire. So bracketing all these commandments between the two fundamental ones. The first one, no, don't associate any partner, or don't assume there's any divinity beside Allah. Don't, otherwise will be disgraced and will be forsaken. And then don't be good to the parents. That's in Surah Al-Isra. If you have a Quran nearby, we can open it and read them in sequence, or the translation. And at the end, after almost a half page, no more, maybe one and a half page, it comes at the end, وَلَا تَجْعَلْ مَعَ اللَّهِ. That's the final command, which is the first one. So it's like full circle, closing them. And the one says, so that then you will be thrown in the hellfire. Not only you are forsaken and you are lost, but you will end in the hellfire also. Good?
Yeah. Okay, and that was 1739.
Yeah, that's Surah Al-Isra, yeah.
Okay. There is also
essentially the commandment.
There is also the exposition upon the terrifying consequences that doing this leads to damnation, as expressed in other verses. Hurl every obstinate disbeliever into hell. Everyone who hindered good, was aggressive, caused others to doubt, and set up other gods alongside Allah. Hurl him into severe punishment, and his evil companion will say, Lord, I did not make him transgress. He had already gone far astray himself. And that's Surah 50, 24, 27 to 27, I think, inclusive. Indeed, this is also what the predecessors, the Salaf of this Ummah, and the senior companions has understood, as set out in Bukhari's Adab al-Mufrad. Abbas al-Narsi narrated to us, he said, Abdul Wahid narrated to us, he said, Abdullah Wahid narrated to us, he said, Layth narrated to us, he said, a man from the people of Basra reported to me, he said, I had Ma'qil ibn Yasar saying that he came to the Prophet ﷺ with Abu Bakr, may Allah be pleased with him. He said, O Abu Bakr, shirk is more concealed among you than the movement of ants. Thereafter, Abu Bakr replied, is shirk anything other than attributing another God besides Allah? The Prophet ﷺ replied and said, by him who has my soul in his hand, shirk is more concealed than the movement of ants. Shall I not teach you something which, if you say it, it will eliminate its minor or major forms? Thereafter he said, say, O Allah, I seek refuge in you, lest I associate anything with you while I know it, and I seek refuge for your forgiveness for what I do not know.
So this is the other shirk the Prophet meant is, so for example, like showing off like these. This is shirk in niyyah and things like that. That doesn't take necessarily out of the world of Islam. So Abu Bakr did not know that this definition of minor shirk and secret and the shirk, a hidden shirk, which is essentially riyah, which is showing off and so on, is that he was not aware that these things deserve that. He knows that riyah is despicable and condemned, but that it deserves the title shirk is not aware of what. That's the reason say, is shirk anything except pointing or associating with Allah any other partner? He said, yes. And he didn't give example, but taught him how to get out of it and ask forgiveness, even if you're not aware about it. For example, riyah. What's riyah? Showing off. You give sadaqah. By definition, sadaqah is giving someone money or food or something with a niyyah to give him to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So you want to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's all what you had. It should be focused on Allah only. Now, when you are giving, some people are watching, you give more, or you would like that they look at you. So you are giving to get their praise or to impress them. Your niyyah is not pure to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. In matter of niyyah, you also give him made to him a partner. And Allah says, I don't need your sadaqah. If you want the people to be pleased, do that for them. It has no value for me. It annihilates the sadaqah, but does not annihilate your belief. And that's, in that sense, it's a shirk. It's asserting Allah in a niyyah which should be exclusively devoted to him. Yeah. And things like that. And this all does not take out to the whole Islam. And it was Abu Bakr was not aware, not that they are haram or they're ugly or despicable. The Quran is full of that, even Mecca and so on. No, but he did not recognize that they deserve the name of shirk in certain aspect. Yeah, and that's called shirk asghar, shirk khafi, and it's usually hidden. Nobody notices it. Even the one who does it does not notice that shirk. So since it can happen to everyone, a bit of show off, a bit of diversion of niyyah will happen to everyone without the watching. Shaitan catch you in a moment which you are not completely focused and so on. And the only way just to clean yourself of that is just to acknowledge it may happen for me, that Allah forgive me and wipe away whatever I committed of type of minor shirk and secret shirk without me being aware of it. So if I'm aware, yeah, I know, and I'm repenting for it. But even the one I'm not aware, I'm asking also forgiveness for it. Yeah. So he taught him the dua, which means you acknowledge that it's possible from you, that you are not that above all these temptation and problems. Show humbleness and humility, and asking Allah for help and forgiveness for that will wipe that kind of shirk. And the one you have to focus your mind that you have to end that, change your creed if necessary, and ask for forgiveness for that by testifying the shahada again and so on. So known, unknown one, from them, repentance is requested. But for the unknown one, you may not aware about them, but it's only that will happen for everyone. Nobody will be free from that whatsoever, except unfallible prophets and so on. So then you have in your supplication to include it as the Messenger of Allah has advised. Good? That's a matter of etiquette and manner, not a matter of fundamental creed. The real shirk, which we are discussing here, which is our own affair, is this. The same with real abd, meaning the one who really worship and enslave himself to Allah. But nevertheless, you could say the one who loves money so much that all his time is running behind money, you can call him the slave of dinar, or the slave of mammon, or the slave of money, or the slave of wealth. Because he's so desiring and running behind it that he has enslaved himself, but not enslaved himself of the reality which take you out of Islam, but definitely a disgusting, despicable state of affairs, which you have to clean yourself from it quickly. And it can develop to a level which gets you out of fold of Islam, becoming so extreme that Allah becomes secondary. If it becomes secondary and money is primary, so that you commit haram deliberately to get money and so on, then you make istihlal, you are out of Islam. That will be done istihlal, which is the other side of the coin of shirk. But this is both fine points of the states of heart and so on. But let's get the fundamental part, the clear creedal part, and the nice things and the attachment and so on comes after that. Well, it doesn't mean it's not important, but it comes after that. Let's establish the fundamental, then we, like Abu Bakr said, we are only that associated with Allah any partner. Attribution individuals to beside Allah. Yes, that's the fundamental shirk, but there's a hidden one which you don't notice. Maybe so hidden like the food, the traces of the foods of the ants. Who can say the traces of the food of the ants? It's barely visible, except maybe for the ants themselves, but not for us. And it's almost certainly nobody is free from that. So you make yourself far for it and ask Allah to protect you from it with that what you don't know. Good? Carry on.
The statement of Abu Bakr as-Siddiq, may Allah be pleased with him, an eloquent Arab from the Quraysh, nay, a man at the pinnacle of eloquence in this tradition. Is shirk anything other than attributing another god besides Allah? It's precisely our statement that we have previously elaborated. No other meaning of shirk had formed in his mind except taking another god deity alongside Allah, that is, attributing some of divinity to other than Allah. The remainder prophetic reply regarding the hidden latency of shirk is a new legal terminology brought by the final revelation. This wasn't previously known to the Arabs up to that moment, nor known to Abu Bakr and the other companions. May
All the
Allah be pleased
Sahaba,
with
yeah.
them all.
They know that Riyah is bad and the sin, but they don't know that it can be classified and should be called shirk, which is its really, but it's not shirk in the fundamental belief. It's shirk in matter of divinity. It's shirk in matter of intention and the direction of devotion. Such devotion which should be exclusive to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Some devotion Allah give permission clearly that you may have secondary intention, like if you go to Hajj, obviously going there to remember Allah and glorify Him for the enormous permission He gave to humans that they can slaughter animal, eat them. We discussed that once, I think, in tafsir. That's the main thing. But Allah said clearly, and in the pilgrimage for Hajj, it is no blame on you if you have goods with you, you sell at Hajj. Hajj is also a great market, and markets around Hajj. So does not undermine that, because for the Hajj, definitely you are going for Hajj for that main purpose, but you are in Mecca, and and the people in Mecca need to buy and sell, and you need to buy and sell also and make money, maybe finance your trip. So it's okay to have that also intention, and you have got certain goods, or special, you are from India, there are certain Indian goods and spices nobody have in Mecca, so you take with them, there's a good market to sell there and make some money, and vice versa. The Makki wait for the Hajj also to have business and do some creation of some wealth which help them after the Hajj time until next Hajj. That's most Makki were in time past surviving on that. And until now, that's the main income and survival. Now maybe the other income and so on, but many centuries that was the only thing which give them real survivability between Hajj times. That's the time to stock money, to stock goods and so on, and go through the dry time until the next Hajj. Good?
Thus, he gave actions and intentions the name shirk, classified them as practical shirk, shirkan amaliyan, and deemed them sinful
I think
and forbidden.
it's better to stick to shirk al-khafi, secret shirk, or shirk al-riya, or shirk al-niyya. What shirk amali is that what the Wahhabi use, and this again make things confused because they define the ibadah the wrong way, so everything became upside down. You don't know what shirk amali, what shirk i'tiqadi, and that's the problem. So it's better to, in the next edition, I will say some people call it shirk amali. That's not a correct naming. It's like a convention, which is okay to be as a convention, but it may confuse issues. So stick to shirk khafi and shirk or riya and things like that, or shirk niyya. Not describe it as amali and other i'tiqadi. That may confuse issues. Yeah.
Okay.
Or this may be just pure convention for scholars, but convention should be chosen that they clarify, not confuse things. If you have a convention which confuse things, there's a bad convention. Should be forsaken. That I will add, inshallah. Okay.
And even the sinful and forbidden, they're not expelling one from the domain of Islam, even though they are not at the core or essence of the shirk of disbelief, which contradicts the two testimonies of faith. In other words, completely contradicts and nullifies one's Islam, expels one from the deen, and condemns the individual by any repentance once the message has reached him to an everlasting curse and damnation in the fire. The matter of a shirk al-khafi, the hidden shirk, or a shirk al-amali, practical shirk, or even shirk al-asghar, minor shirk, was newly established by the terminology of the lawmaker, and it is not rooted in the original language.
Hence, I commented that already. A bit of comment is there. Yeah, carry on. Yeah.
Hence, it does not form the core focus of the present chapter. We are only examining, and nothing more, the original meaning understood by the pure Arabs, both believers and disbelievers, at the time of revelation, when they spoke about God, deities, worship, and sanctity, before the introduction of the new legal terminology.
And we may add here, not only by the Arabs and so on, but also used and sharpened and clarified exclusively by the Quran. Okay.
Moreover, this is also what the early generations understood, as evidenced by a testimony of Abdullah ibn Umar, may Allah be pleased with him. When a man, apparently from the Kharij, the extremists, asked him a series of repeating questions upon what is shirk. The tradition is to be found in the Musannaf of Abdul Razak. From Abdul Razak, from Ja'far, from Ibn Sulaiman, from Yazid Ibn Rishq, he said, Abu Mijlaz narrated to us, he said, I was sitting with Abu Ibn Umar when a man entered upon us and he said, O Abu Abdurrahman, what is associating partners with Allah? In reply, Ibn Umar said that you make another God besides Allah. The man also asked, O Abdurrahman, O Abu Abdurrahman, what is associating partners with Allah? Ibn Umar replied that you take besides Allah rivals. The man asked again, O Abu Abdurrahman, what is associating partners with Allah? At this junction, Ibn Umar then said, I urge you, if you are Muslim, to leave me at once. The man then left, and Ibn Umar became extremely angry. Seeing his anger, I stood up to leave as well, but he struck my knee with his hand and said, Sit down. I hope you are not among them. I then said, O Abu Abdurrahman, I had come to Medina seeking a need, and to stay there for 7 or 8 months. So how should I pray? He replied, Pray 2 rakats. 2 rakats.
Except because he's Musafir. But there's no explanation when Ibn Umar is angry. Because this one extremist Khariji wanted, obviously, to get from Ibn Umar a definition which is other than the fundamental definition. Musa says the one who is ruling, not ruling with Allah has revealed, or one who is working with the American Marwan, or with he wants an answer like that. And this is not the way shirk, that may be another type of kufr and so on. And besides, Ibn Umar is really not that extremely detailed in issue of bay'ah and hukum and ruling and so on, so that he can give it a correct naming. Now, the correct name will be kufr, will be some, but not shirk. And that's the reason he was upset after that of 2 questions. I told you what shirk is according to the Quran. And the man wanted obviously to say those who ruled with Al-Hajjaj, for example, or Abdul Malik ibn Marwan, or even Ibn Zubayr. He wanted to get something in that direction. And Ibn Umar, being not that exceptionally deep and comprehensive faqih, could not answer and became angry after two questions, after answering twice.
As for the first statement, that you worship none but Allah, it may seem problematic at first glance because at a cursory level, it only appears to be limited to a form and absolute prohibition against worshipping other than Allah without any exception whatsoever. Thus, it might seem like a pure prohibition, containing no command at all. Perhaps because the apparent meaning of this statement is, do not worship anything at all except Allah. Absolutely, I neither forbid you from worshipping Him nor command you to do so. However, what appears at first glance from the wording of the statement is illusory, because the addresses cannot possibly accept the address. The addressees cannot possibly accept the address. Do not worship anything other than Allah, absolutely, nor can they adhere to this prohibition entirely unless A, they have firstly acknowledged, submitted, and surrendered to Allah in terms of al-ilahiyya, godhood. Then the one commanding is the true God, the existing creator, and He is Allah the Exalted. Following that, B, they have acknowledged, submitted, and surrendered to Him in terms of al-qadasa, holiness, for He does not lie nor wrong eternally and forever. Lastly, C, they have acknowledged, submitted, and surrendered to Him in terms of al-hakimiyya, namely His sovereignty and prerogative of command, His absolute supreme.
We're fleshing out that what the meaning of enslaving yourself to Allah and to go as a deity and as a supreme owner and supreme commander. If you flesh it out and make it 1, 2, 3, 4, it is like that. Maybe it can be even made more precise. So that you see the Hakimiyya is the core of that. Although at first sight doesn't reveal that, and that's what it is. Donkey madkhali asun claim Tawheed أولا ثم Hakimiyya. Not knowing that the Hakimiyya is in the core of Tawheed, on the base of it, and on the top of it. And that's happened because, again, the fundamental error in definition of Uluhiyya and Rububiyyah, and the fundamental error in definition of Ibadah. That's it. That's a catastrophe which has no cure unless you go there and demolish it from the root. Yeah, carry on.
His absolute supreme and ultimate authority, that is, His inherent right to command and prohibit, absolutely and unconditionally, except for what He has obligated or forbidden upon Himself or made conditioned therein. The meaning of the sentence that you worship none but Allah is in reality an exhaustive elaboration. You must know by necessity of reason that Allah exists, that He is the true God, the creator, the doer of what He wills, and that He has the inherent right to command and prohibit, absolutely and unconditionally.
Because he's the absolute owner and the absolute sovereign and commander, yeah, by necessity. Yeah.
Except
Yeah.
for what He has obligated upon Himself or conditioned therein. This
Yeah.
is because He is the true God. Thus, acknowledging this and submitting to Him is inherently good and obligatory by reason. He has eternally forbidden falsehood upon Himself. Therefore, firm belief and absolute certainty in the truth of His message is obligatory by reason. He has sent me to you to remind you of what is rationally obligatory, and to obey and to convey to you that He has mandated and obligated upon you by divine law, meaning He demands from you your acknowledgement, submission, and surrender to all of this, such that whoever does so deserves praise and reward from Allah, and whoever does not deserves blame and punishment from Him. He forbids you from worshipping anything other than Allah, absolutely and unconditionally. Once this is established and clarified without doubt in the mind, it becomes permissible for us to return to summarizing this lengthy discourse. Thus, the correct interpretation of his statement, "Do not worship except Allah," is to acknowledge, submit, and surrender to Allah and His sovereignty, and not worship anything other than Allah, absolutely. In actuality, the statement as it pertains to acknowledging, submitting, and surrendering to Allah is merely another formulation of the statement command, which is obey Allah, Allah, a formulation readily seen in countless verses of the Quran. Although it comes in the form of a command, it is not a literal command in that sense. Otherwise, someone might say, how do I know that obeying Allah is obligatory? It is by a prior command. Is it by a prior command from Him? This would require another prior command from Him, and so ad infinitum, which is impossible. In other words, if you say obey me, you have to establish it goes in infinite regress, yeah? In reality, this wording contains two pieces of information, as though He, the glorified and exalted, said firstly, you know by necessity of reason that obeying me absolutely and unconditionally is rationally obligatory and inherently good, as befits rational being, and here I remind you of that. Secondly, I inform you, in addition to that, that I demand that obedience from you, and I will hold you accountable for it. And there will be a reward for obedience in the form of absolute happiness, eternal bliss, and everlasting pleasures, which every rational being seeks. This is in essence a promise that will undoubtedly be fulfilled, for Allah has obligated Himself to carry it out, and it is not permissible for Allah to break it. Or B, punishment for disobedience, from which there is no escape or deliverance, in an eternal fire and perpetual misery, from which every rational being should strive to escape from. We therefore arrive, just as was the case with the second and third addresses, at the following equation, with an appropriate prior reminder being necessary for the address, so there is no need to explicitly state it. Equation: ألا تعبدوا إلا الله
ألا تعبدوا إلا
ألا تعبدوا إلا الله equals اق... اق... اقروا اقروا وسلموا واستسلموا لله بالحاكمية. لا تعبد
أقر واستسلموا لله الحاكمية.
بلس لا تعبدوا شيء شيئا غير الله مطلقا, that you worship none but Allah, equals acknowledge, submit, and surrender to Allah in His Hakimiyah, plus do not worship anything other than Allah absolutely. Or by way of alternate wording, it could be expressed as that you worship none but Allah equals obey Allah plus don't worship anything other than Allah absolutely. The reminder would be remember and acknowledge what is firmly established by way of your natural innate disposition, which is to testify to the hakimiyah of Allah, or the obligation to obey Allah. Perhaps we may return to completing the fundamental premise underpinning the truth as it relates to shirk, by contemplating upon the wisdom expressed in the following verse as they relate to the wise man, Luqman, that is set out in the text where He, the Exalted, says, we endowed Luqman with wisdom. Be thankful to Allah Whoever gives thanks benefits his own soul. And as for those who are thankless, Allah is self-sufficient, worthy of all praise. Luqman counseled his son, My son, do not attribute any partners to Allah. Attributing partners to him is a terrible wrong. So, لا تشركوا بالله لا تشرك بالله إن الشرك
ظلم عظيم. ظلم عظيم.
لظلم عظيم.
Great injustice, great wrong. Yeah.
We have commanded people to be good to their parents, their mothers, carried them with strain upon strain, and it takes 2 years to wean them. Give thanks to me and to your parents. All will return to me. If they strive to make you associate with me anything about which you have no knowledge, then do not obey them. Yet keep their company in this life according to what is right, and follow the path of those who turn to me. You will all return to me in the end, and I will tell you everything that you have done. And Luqman continued, My son, if even the weight of a mustard seed were hidden in a rock or anywhere in the heavens or earth, Allah would bring it to light, for He is all subtle and all aware. Keep up the prayer, my son, command what is right, forbid what is wrong, bear anything that happens to you steadfastly. These are things to be aspired to. Do not turn your nose up at people, nor walk about the place arrogantly, for Allah does not love arrogant or boastful people. Go at a moderate pace and lower your voice, for the ugliest of all voices is the braying of asses. And that's Quran 31, 12, 19.
Good advice. Sort of heavy people who love to be loud and screaming and so on. It sounds like donkeys, and they behave like donkeys.
These verses may be one of the sources of the first phrase, to worship none but Allah, as stated where He, the Exalted, said, Set up no other God besides Allah, or you will end up disgraced and forsaken. Your God has commanded that you worship none but Him, and that you be kind to your parents. And that's 17, 22, 23. Thereafter, He, the Almighty, enumerated many rulings and the enjoining of good morals, until He said, with repetition and emphasis, This is some of the wisdom your Lord has revealed to you. Do not set up another God besides Allah, or you will be thrown into hell, blamed and rejected. That's verse 39, I believe. Okay. Despite some differences in etiquette and details, we cannot help but conclude that the statement of the wise man, do not attribute any partners to Allah, is in essence equivalent to Allah's command, worship none but Allah. That is, we have arrived at the equation, لا تعبدوا إلا الله equals لا تشرك بالله. Worship none but Allah equals do not associate partners with Allah. The aforementioned equation gains further strength and clarity by noting that the wording of the verse from Surah Al-Isra, as previously quoted, set up no God beside Allah or you will end up disgraced and forsaken. As noted earlier, shirk is the matter of setting up another God with alongside beside Allah. Then he reaffirmed the same overall meaning, but in different words, by saying your Lord has commanded that you should worship none but him. The conclusion to the matter is then set out in the wording as already quoted from Surah Al-Isra, verse 39. Do not set up another God besides Allah. Now, at this juncture, in the same manner and by repeating the same discussion we conducted earlier when examining the comprehensive address of that you worship none but Allah, the validation of the following equation can be presented. لا تشرك بالله equals اقرأ أقر والسلام واستسلم
واستسلم
لله بالحاكمية plus لا تشرك بالله شيئا على الإطلاق. Do not attribute partners to Allah equals acknowledge, submit, and surrender to the Hakimi of Allah, plus do not associate anything with Allah whatsoever, or expressed as being لا تشرك بالله equals أطيع الله plus لا تشرك بالله شيئا على الإطلاق. Do not attribute partners to Allah equals obey Allah plus do not associate anything with Allah whatsoever. But also لا تعبدوا إلا الله equals أقر والسلام واستسلم لله بالحكيمية plus لا تعبدوا شيئا غير الله مطلقا لا تشرك بالله which equals لا تشرك بالله equal اشهد لله بالحاكمية plus لا تشرك بالله شيئا على الإطلاق. Worship none but Allah equals acknowledge, submit, and surrender to the Hakimi of Allah, plus do not worship anything other than Allah, absolutely, equals testify to the Hakimi of Allah, plus do not associate anything with Allah whatsoever. Thus the equation is undoubtedly true. لا تعبدوا شيئا غير الله مطلقا لا تشرك بالله شيئا على الإطلاق. Do not worship anything other than Allah, absolutely. Do not associate anything with Allah whatsoever. And it necessarily follows that الشرك بالله equals عبادة غير الله equals إن تجعل مع الله إله آخر equals نسبة شيء
نسبة شيء من الألوهية إلى غير الله.
which is associating partners with Allah equals worshipping other than Allah, which equals to make another God alongside Allah, which equals attributing any aspect of divinity to other than Allah. Here, the aforementioned equation can also be expressed as follows: عبادة غير الله equals نسبة شيء من الألوهية لغير الله equals أن تجعل مع الله إله آخر equals shirk billah. Worshipping other than Allah equals attributing any aspect of divinity to other than Allah equals to make another God alongside Allah equals shirk with Allah. The validity of these equations will be confirmed repeatedly through independent proofs, some of which will be highlighted during the study of Ibrahim alayhi salam and his people, which is in part 7 of this present volume. Returning once again to the second discourse that we set out upon, worship Allah, you have no deity other than Him. To further clarify its meaning, and we have found that it entails اعبدوا الله ما لكم من إله غيره equals اعبدوا الله plus أشهد أنه ما لكم من إله غيره equals اعبدوا الله plus أشهد إنه ما من إله غير الله equals الله لا إله إلا لا تعبدوا الله plus أشهد أن إنه equals اعبدوا الله plus اجتنبوا الطاغوت equals اعبدوا الله plus لا تشركوا بالله شيئا. Worship Allah, you have no God other than Him equals worship Allah plus testify that you have no other God except Him equals worship Allah plus testify that there is no deity other than Allah equals worship Allah plus disavow the Taghut equals worship Allah and do not associate anything with Allah. Or more specifically, اعبدوا ما لكم من إله غيره equals اعبدوا الله plus لا تشركوا بالله شيئا. Worship Allah, you have no God other than Him equals worship Allah plus do not associate anything with Him. The first discourse has produced ألا تعبدوا إلا الله equals أقروا واستسلموا لله بالحاكمية plus لا تعبدوا شيئا غير الله مطلقا. That you worship none but Allah equals acknowledge, submit, and surrender to the Hakimi of Allah, plus do not worship anything other than Allah absolutely. Alternatively, this could be ألا تعبدوا إلا الله equals أطيعوا الله plus لا تعبدوا شيئا غير الله مطلقا. That you worship none but Allah equals obey Allah plus do not worship anything other than Allah absolutely. But we had established the equation similarly, and here is one of its forms. لا تعبدوا شيئا غير الله مطلقا لا تشرك بالله شيئا على الإطلاق. Do not worship anything other than Allah absolutely. Do not associate with anything with Allah at all. Equals that. Therefore, the discourse can have its result rephrased as follows: ألا تعبدوا إلا الله equals
Allah. Allah.
Allah.
It's إدغام يسوي أن لا. So that not.
Oh, sorry. ألا تعبدوا إلا الله. ألا تعبدوا إلا الله equals اكروا وسلموا واستسلموا لله بالحكمية لا تشرك plus لا تشركوا بالله شيئا على الإطلاق. That you worship none but Allah, acknowledge, submit, and acknowledge, submit, and surrender to the Hakimi of Allah, plus do not associate anything other than Allah absolutely. Or ألا تعبدوا إلا الله equals أطيعوا الله plus لا تشركوا بالله شيئا على الإطلاق. That you worship none but Allah, obey Allah, plus do not associate anything with Allah at all absolutely. From the alignment of the first and second addresses, we arrive at the following equation: Ibudullah, Iqru wassalamu equals Iqru wassalamu
واستسلموا
wastaslimu lillahi bil hakimiyya equals
حاكمين.
Atiullah. Worship Allah equals acknowledge, submit, and surrender to Allah in His hakimiyya, which equals obey Allah. Alternatively, this can be expressed as follows: عبادة الله equals الشهادة بالحاكمية الله equals طاعة الله. Worship Allah equals testifying to the hakimiyya of Allah, which equals obey Allah. But testifying to the hakimiyya of Allah is precisely acknowledging and submitting that Allah is the Lord, meaning He is the Supreme Master, possessing the ultimate and highest authority to command and prohibit, and surrendering to Him without any condition or restriction.
So the word Hakimiyya is not the original Arabic word, is crafted relatively recently, but the meaning of it is that He is the absolute sovereign, the only one intrinsically have the right to command.
Meaning is the Supreme Master, possessing the
Supreme Master, Supreme Lord, yeah, the Lord Supreme. Because Lord can be used in Arabic and also Master for not the Lord Supreme in a limited sense. Although the word Lord in Arabic has been reserved for Allah, Rabb, for Allah, and should not be used for anybody else. And before Islam, it was used also with kings for the slave master, the owner of the slave, etc. And Allah said, no, stop using that. Just say my master and my mistress for the owned one, the slave, the bondsman or bondswoman, say that, and the owner and the master will say they'll say my slave and my slave girl. They say fataya fatati, my boy and my girl. So from that now on, using Rabb for anybody except Allah is rejected, despicable, most likely haram, and addressing the one you own as this is my abdi, that's despicable, should be avoided. Say this is my boy, or my ally, or my bondsman, or if you use any other word which does not entail the word abd.
Okay, so He's the Supreme Master, possessing the ultimate and highest authority to command and prohibit, and surrendering to Him without any condition or restriction. Mm-hmm. This is entirely consistent with the original covenant that was made, which is innate to mankind. Prophet, when your Lord took out the offspring from the loins of the children of Adam and made them bear witness about themselves, He said, am I not your Lord? And they replied, yes, we bear witness. So you cannot
look at the question. It's not that I'm your God or creator. That's not an issue of discussion. What's very important is that, am I your Lord, your Supreme Lord? That's what they admit. That's the issue. That's an important issue. That He is the creator and so on. That's the reason that He is their Lord. And this is usually not a matter of dispute or back and forth. But Lordship is the one who is mostly under dispute. Everywhere, by all mushrikeen. And by monks and scribes who claim they have the right of legislation, and by some monk and scribe or Muslim who take liberty, go to the border, even that they can legislate or can make ijma' negating sharia, and all of these things is effectively appointing themselves for their follower, appoint them lords beside Allah. That's it. Effectively, although it's not said openly, sometimes almost there, and then it's there. The one saying that or doing it is getting out of the fold Islam, becoming a kafir. But in most of the time, it is done in a roundabout way, which is confusing, which prevents us to describe the person as a kafir, as a person. But the statement itself is a statement of kufr. Yeah.
So you say that they replied, yes, we bear witness. So you cannot say on the day of resurrection, we were not aware of this. And that's Surah 7:172. Similarly,
it's called the covenant of fitrah, the initiation, the covenant and the initiation. And
Similarly, sorry.
that's subconsciously, and it's in the structure of the mind. It's not conscious and not matter of really proper accounting and hellfire and things like that. In contradistinction to the Wahhabi and other forsaken people, lost people. Yeah. Carry on.
Because there's no hujjah. I mean, just having that and not having a.
Yeah, it's not a hujjah that upon which then punishment to the hellfire is possible.
Because it's happened.
It's subconscious in the structure of the mind, but it is a hujjah to rebuke them that I gave you such a head start and so much benefit, and still you fail to appreciate that and respond accordingly. But it's only for rebucation and reminder.
So this is the last paragraph of this chapter, which we can probably stop the text and we can open questions. Similarly, it further aligns to the first and most important question in the grave after death. Who is your Lord? We cannot speak of worshipping Allah unless we testify to Allah's Hakimiyya, which is the pinnacle of lordship, and lordship is the backbone of divinity. That is, unless we acknowledge Allah with all divinity, conversely, associating partners with Allah, which is worshipping other than Allah, occurs by attributing even the slightest aspect of divinity, meaning some aspect of divinity to other than Allah, even if only in one consideration.
Like, for example, I think the example will come here, I'm not sure. For example, for the jinn, that they can escape Allah and undermine his attempt to catch them. That's enough. Because if you can frustrate Allah attempt to catch you, meaning at least in this respect, you have equal power. The jinn did not believe that they can attack Allah and seat him from a throne or something like that, but some of them believed, or the devil told them, you can actually run away from him. Meaning you have in this aspect of running away and hiding equal power to him. That's an aspect of divinity, and this the one who believes that in the jinn had declared them to be partnered with Allah in matter of power and of escape and running away, and thus whatever he does toward them, not necessarily love and affection, but for fear, sacrifice, is then can be regarded as ritual and act of worship. Not otherwise. It must be preceded by some kind of a belief like that. Then it is. Then he's a mushrik outside of Islam who does that. Yeah.
Brother had raised his hand earlier. If you feel free to
finish this section. It's finished now.
We finished. Yeah.
Okay.
So that finishes. Yeah. So that finishes chapter 12, chapter 11. So next week we'll start from chapter 12, page 117, clarifying the precise meaning of the word worship. So free for all. Anyone can speak now, inshallah. Fire away.
Yes. Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh. I just need some clarification about is every instance of kufr identical with shirk, and every shirk necessarily leads to kufr, yani. And in that context,
I don't. What's the benefit of that in the matter of actually what the ancient, at least in the first generation, were worried about is attributing someone to be mushrik. That means we out of the fold of Islam. Kufr, they may regard sometimes kufr doing a kufr, and they were wavering in that. So I don't think there's a benefit of it in any respect, because but there are certain aspects, but the definition is different. Kufr is for rejecting the message. For example, you could say the aspect of it that you reject the message, provided obviously you see the evidence and in your heart you know it is this is the messenger, say he's not a messenger, meaning that you make yourself having the liberty and the right to reject and accept what had been proven by necessity of reason and sent by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So you are appointed yourself to be divine or a god beside Allah. So it has aspects of shirk in that sense. But the focus is usually we talk about when we say about the people of Fir'aun, when they make kufr jahad, وَجَحَدُوا بِهَا, the rejectors say, oh, this is all witchcraft, although they knew it is not witchcraft in their heart. وَاسْتَبْطَنَتَ أَنفُسُهُمْ ظُلْمًا وَعُلُوًا. So that's a kufr, so jahad. But shirk aspect of it, you have to go a little bit deeper in the issue. By rejecting that and not accepting it, despite it is clear for them by necessity, and they know in their heart they can, because being convinced about an argument is happened by necessity of reason. You cannot defend away, but you can deny. You can publicly say, no, it's not convincing, it's wrong. But that's what people do usually. That's kufr al-jahad, meaning that you gave yourself the authority to reject the truth although it is apparent. And this is some kind of shirk. That's even worse than that. Someone could say even Allah will not reject the truth when it is in front of him. By necessity, he is the truth and cannot reject the truth. But some human even go overboard, even rejecting the truth, giving them authority and power, even more than what Allah is an impossible one anyway. So in that aspect, if you go to such complicated things, but the question is that what is the benefit of that in understanding Tawheed and Shirk and Islam? What we can deduce from that? It's just maybe just philosophical discourse, yeah. But does it have a benefit in classifying things and so on?
I just want to understand from conceptual perspective.
Yeah, you can sit and flesh with various type of kufr, where the eye of kufr came, if there's an aspect of shirk is there and so on. You can, but I don't think it has much benefit in any practical or even other philosophical, except as like studying a pure abstract structure in mathematics. It's satisfying. It is pleasing, which is okay. I have no problem with that. I mean, so because some people study that is to say, for example, someone is mushrik kafir, so it's definitely out of the whole Islam. Because usually is the word mushrik is, at least the first generation, is the one which is decisive. That's the reason when the man came to Ibn Umar, as we read earlier, said, "Ma shirku billah." He didn't say what's a kufr, because this could be people differ. What is kufr? Is it take out of Islam or not? Or it is describing an act being so extreme as if it is talking about, like for example, when the Prophet said, "Sibab al-Muslim fusuq," insulting and slandering Muslims is fusuq, is a rebellion and sin and possibly major sin. وَقِتَالُهُ, and fighting him is kufr, so much bigger, without necessarily being of the aspect of shirk or taking out of the fold of Islam, for example. So that's the reason this area is very complex. So if you add to it, even if there's an aspect of this, this is going deeper in these things, which will get you in the psychological aspects, spiritual understanding of the heart and so on, which has its standing, but it is, I don't think it has much of a fundamentally practical or even philosophical value. But it can be done. It can be done. We can say to another type, we can say to kufr al-takrib, kufr al-jahad, kufr kada.
Yeah, and every act of muharaba to be regarded as kufr or what?
That's another issue then. No, not necessarily. Act of muharaba is not necessarily kufr. Most of the time it's kufr, but for example, there's istihlal, it is kufr. And then there's an aspect of it is that you allowed yourself to make halal and haram, but this is only for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So you make yourself the reference, the Supreme Lord. And this is, you make a Supreme Lord and a deity beside Allah. And then you by your own desire. Yeah, for example. So there's various aspects there. But the question, what is beneficial in the act of muharaba, if you class it in kufr or not? It doesn't make any value. The only value, maybe someone said, okay, if someone is muharib, according to Ayat al-Muharaba and the various hadith classifying that and what's the definition of muharaba, he can be killed. Good. If you class him as a kafir, the only result is that you don't bury him with a Muslim. Who cares about that? I don't think that's a major issue. Okay. But if somebody say, no, he's a Muslim, okay, go bury him wherever you want. Do you think if we bury a kafir in the Muslim cemetery, the Muslims will be banned in hell? No. We're not aware about him. It's just a matter of symbolic dishonoration. That's it. So what benefit else is there?
Because if I remember correctly, you wrote a kitab about these issues for Iraqi revolution in 2003 or
this is like fighting resistance group. Yeah, I didn't bother about kufr iman. I bothered who can be fought and killed. That's the important things. Is he kafir or not kafir? It's not relevant. If you think he's a kafir, then don't bury him with a Muslim. That's it. So what else is the practical benefit from that? No practical benefit. Someone could say what happened with his wealth and so on can be divided. But if he killed during fighting, then what he has with him become a booty. And what he has not with him is in the hand of his wife and children, is in their hand. It's transferred to them by his rebellion and going carrying arm and separating. Unless the wife and family are with him, then they may become part of the booty. But that's a detailed of fiqh. You see, asking the kufr and iman in this is not practical and doesn't bring any benefit. It's get you in the devil's kitchen. And the reason jihadi ask this question, because they think kufr make it automatic bloodshed. No, kufr does not make automatic bloodshed. The kafir, which is not harbi, is absolutely protected. The Muslim is protected by kufr, by being a human being, by the divine injunction, and by Islam in addition. More protection. But all protection and shedding the blood is absolutely no. So the issue of kufr has nothing to do with bloodshed. But they made it like that, because they made the following rule. Al-Islam يعصم الدم والكفر يهدره. Islam protect the blood and kufr allowed it to be shed. Both are wrong. Bloods are protected by the divine injunction. Do not shed blood unless I give you permission by haqq. That's it.
The reason I'm asking these questions is like, all jihadists, they only use what they
are wrong. That's the story. They are wrong. They're going the wrong way.
Yeah. And I never seen they use the term of muharaba.
Because they're wrong. They're starting fundamentally wrong and then went astray. That's the reason all their action is not productive. Most of their action is not productive and in vain. That's it, unfortunately. You see that. Besides, in the fighting resistance group, there's an appendix about the basic ruling about the blood, is it cannot be shed. And nafs. We could even derive that every nafs, including the which can be declared as with the blood which can be shed or something, is including even animals. But animals, you have the general permission, as Allah said, and that's the reason you have Hajj, to thank Allah for this enormous permission. So you could see even extended to that, but let's focus only on humans. Because meaning the human nafses. And not talking about jinn, not talking about animals and so on. But if you say it's talking about animals, still the same apply. But in the case of animals, it's permitted. The edible animals, otherwise why you should kill animals? That's a major sin if you kill animals for not for fair. So like the woman who locked the cat until the cat died, neither let her go and feed herself nor give her food. And I'm still, I saw her while doing the Salatul Kusuf, saw her in the hellfire, the cat becoming huge and attacking her like a lion. And she's punished for that in hellfire. So it's a major sin. Meaning you are not allowed to kill an animal except the divine permission also. So that's very clear. Finish. Game over. All the jihad, blah, 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 is annihilated by this ayah. But it has to be done thoroughly and not follow some stupid fuqaha who put such rules which are internally contradictory. Like Islam يعصم الدم. No, Islam does not matter. Islam adfar isma. Besides, this isma will be broken if someone is a Muslim but he kills someone, then his blood can be shed in retribution. Yeah? So, that's not a rule. No. Human beings are protected, their blood is protected, is absolute no, unless the Sharia injunction allows it to be shed, and their backs and their skin is protected, no beating, no hitting, and so on, unless Sharia allowed it, like in the case of whipping and so on, that's only. And only where the place of whipping, that's in the back, in the top of the back, and in the buttock. Not in the bottom of the back, which is dangerous, it could affect you, nor in the legs. That's haram also. Even in doing had. Many things that which all these people have forsaken and forgotten. The same with cutting hand in case of theft. After it has proven and no shubha is there, the hand has to be put such a way that it can be separated cleanly, not using a chopper, like we have seen a picture of one of these Daesh cutting someone's hand with a chopper. It's a criminal act. But these people are just brain dead. That's it. That's a problem. They read the Quran without understanding. And even worse than the Sunnah, they understanding it less. And they don't read together in context and in totality. No wonder that they end at what you see now. In such a way that all major world powers and energy service companies penetrate them and play with their mind and direct them in any direction because they are brain dead. If they have real brains which are working properly, they would not have been so deeply. Penetration will be happening to every community in the world, but necessary. But it won't be so effective and making them sometimes fight for for this oligarchy, sometimes fight for France, sometimes, like for example, look at Daesh in Mozambique and so on, that area there, or that area, or Madagascar and so on. There seem to be Daesh there. And it's very clear that what they are doing is by instigation and encouragement of French companies. So France is using them. Another power is using them against France. The same organization. Why? Because they're brain dead. So I think the question is valid, but I say it's better to establish the issue of muharaba and aggression, a justification for warfare and bloodshed, or specific crime as specified by Sharia. So, for example, adultery for married men and women was punishable by stoning before stoning was abrogated. So that was, until it was abrogated, bloodshed is in a certain way for this type, for example. But that was abrogated. But the time it was still valid and enacted, it is a بالحق, according to Allah said. That was haqq. After abrogation, it's gone, remaining only the flogging. And the flogging is having its own limitation. You can't, for example, have the 100 lashes, you can't have some of the lashes on the face. That's itself a crime by itself. Muthla. And should be punished. The one do it should be punished as a torturer and so on. So but for that you have to sit and study the Sharia evidence, study widely. But these people, they read the Quran without digesting it, understanding it. That's what makes them Khawarij, make them extremists. And many jihadis are semi-Khawarij, except maybe Al-Qaeda and their leadership. They did not go to the level of Khawarij. But unfortunately, they did not educate their foot soldiers, and ultimately some foot soldiers rebelled and joined Daesh and so on. And Al-Qaeda became relatively irrelevant. It's the only one which is relatively. Al-Shabaab are bayna. We don't know if they have functions, but they seem to be not in the Khawarij faction. And the way they administer punishment looks clean and proper and reasonable. But all others, Zarqawi, etc., and fake Qaeda, because he renamed himself to Qaeda, and also Daesh and so on. These are clearly and obviously Khawarij. And mentally deranged, unfortunately. That's the reality. I'm not talking about Sharia rule. That's the reality. And if you are mentally deranged and so on, everyone can use you. There's a high probability and probability of everyone to use you because you have a defective brain. If your brain is savvy and working, understand the Quran properly, then it's extremely difficult to be diverted and used. It is not impossible, but it's extremely difficult to be used. Because you have inner protection by using your mind and understand the Quran and Sunnah. Still, you're a human being. There may be some lapses. Like, for example, let us assume Bin Laden and his group is behind the direct attack on the towers, September 11. Let's assume that. But who is really the planner and the one financing behind the scene and using filters and veils to veil himself? Is actually Turki al-Faisal and the Saudi intelligence, especially the oligarchic British wing, with some cooperation of some persons in Pakistan, like, for example, General Muhammad Mahmoud, the head of ISI at that time, for example. But Bin Laden and his group were not aware, because these guys were in the previous decade or before, they were supporting the jihad against Russia and Afghanistan. So they got standing by the people that they are sincere Muslims and their heart is about Islam and so on. So they can communicate based on that, because they're first-class munafiq. A first-class munafiq can't fool everyone. But Daesh and so on, you don't need to be a first-class munafiq. You just to be half idiot and then you can still fool them. That's the difference. You see my point? And possibly even September 11, in part because the Turki Faisal is involved and the oligarchic British wing. You mean by necessity, Mossad is involved and Israel is involved. That's very good explanation why they have people watching that and photographing it and jumping in pleasure. Not that they wanted, but because they said this will be a great opportunity to move hell against certain Muslim countries and so on. Although they don't do it, but they are controlling and playing and directing it behind the scene with their friends from certain wing of Al-Saud. These are the criminals, because their intention is not fighting for Islam or taking revenge for the civilian killed by America, which is a legitimate purpose. That's what motivated Al-Qaeda. So if it is a Qaeda act, for them it is legitimate and they are rewarded for it. Or Turk al-Faisal, they will take punishment for it because they're breaking their covenant and they're stabbing their friends in the back. And they do not intend for that to support Allah and His deen. No, they're intending to take revenge for Faisal, to take revenge on another faction, to gain power, nothing for Allah on the Day of Judgment. Yeah, so you see the same acts from certain side of people are sinful doing it, other people are rewarded for doing it. But this is political and more ideological analysis, that event specifically. But as a matter of principle, what saves you from that is reading the Quran Sunnah and understanding it and digest it properly. And from that, the ruling is that killing and bloodshed is connected to muharaba and aggression, has nothing to do with Islam and Kufr. If you know that, then you don't need to bother about if the muharib is kafir or not kafir. It doesn't matter. He's muharib. So he can be fought up to killing him. Simple. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. That's all what you need. An aggressive kafir who expel you off your country, as long as he's occupying that country like Israel, until you remove him from that country, he's harbi. And you have right to kill him and so on. Don't worry about international or these BS. But if international in this case is on your side anyway, but independent of that. So, is he a Jew? Is he maybe a Muslim community with him? Is it Abu Shabab group? It doesn't matter. He's an aggressor who expelled you from your country. And you have the right to get him out of that, even by massive extermination force. And the non-fighter have to be removed from there. And most of them, likely they will be not removed. Most of the time they will be killed as collateral damage. But you should not intend attacking them, because the children there have no guilt. They don't know what's going on. They don't know that they are in reserve land, so they cannot be targeted directly. But they will be collateral damage, most likely in such a situation. You can't remove them without having a massive amount of collateral damage. But should never be intended. For example, if you have the fundamental rules, you are safe and you go the right way and you are pleasing Allah Ta'ala. If you don't get the corner, and for that these are kafir, not kafir, or innocent, or children, is irrelevant. You put everything in its proper category. Because the issue of fighting or bloodshed is related to aggression and muharaba. And what do you see? All the Israelis are usurping land, and they should be leveled. How can you remove them? Those who are resisting by force will be fought. There's the muharib. But there will be women with them, backing them. They are also co-muharib. But what about the children mentally impaired? They have no responsibility whatsoever. So you should not target them deliberately as such, but most of them will be gone as a collateral damage, unfortunately. That's it. And you are on the safe side between you and Allah, and the questioning Yawm al-Qiyamah. And in dunya, you can argue with everyone in confidence that you have a proper way of going out, relying on what Allah has revealed, comprehensively and properly understood. Okay? That answers your question? So don't waste your time. Aspect of shirk, not shirk, kafir, harbi kafir, not kafir. It's irrelevant. It's completely irrelevant. It's actually wrong to study from this angle. It's dangerous to study from this angle. It's completely dangerous. The same Ali ibn Abi Talib never called the Khawarij that they are kafir. Actually said, our brothers who will transgress against us. But the moment they transgressed and pulled the sword, he exterminated them by the order of the Prophet and mentioned exactly what the Prophet told him. But he didn't say they are kafir. That's the correct understanding. So if you want to follow some understanding, besides what you gain from Quran and Sunnah, and have some really people of great mental capacity, and so that they are most probably right, and very small probability of being wrong, then you have Ali ibn Abi Talib, you have Umar ibn Khattab, you have Abu Bakr, but not Muawiyah, and not many of these scholars, and not Malik, not Ahmed bin Hanbal, with all respect. What these later scholars say, especially those who smell like scholars like Simai Madkhali and so on, you should be assumed that they are questionable and they may have a shu'bah of nifaq on them. Yeah, you have now the mashhud. So focus on that what need to be verified and checked properly. Muharaba and aggression. Is it really muharaba? Is it really aggression? Is it not justified? If it is not clear muharaba, not aggression, the people rebelling against the ruler, they may have certain criticism. Maybe they are not justified to rebel because of criticism, but there's a criticism. A possible valid criticism. So the ruling is that the ruler have to sit with them and say, what is your objection? Give me put it on the table, let's discuss it. They can't just fight them right away. Until it's settled, or refer it to a court, either an existing court, which have this jurisdiction already, or an ad hoc constructed a court of arbitration. That's the way things go, and then nothing will go wrong. Within human capability, nothing will go wrong. The moment you said, is he kafir, not kafir, complete, you are going the abyss way. Will never recover. And that's the reason I say Daesh and so on. Until they change this, they will never recover. There's no way they will ever recover unless they change the basic ideas. They start reading the Quran and digesting it, then they will recover. Before that, there's no recovery. No amount of fighting or bombing except by exterminating them. That's the reason about the Khawarij, when they come out with the sword, what he advised, animuhum. Make them sleep, let them all sleep, meaning exterminate them. Not only just fight them, say kill them, kill the one who has the sword in their hand. No, animuhum, make them sleep, extinguish their fire completely. Because that's the only cure for this. Anyone wake up and let's say and go back and study Quran Sunnah, he ceased to be a Khariji and you will see him leaving the battlefield. Exactly like when Ali ibn Abi Talib fought them. Before fighting, he sent Ibn Abbas to argue with them. And they were about 15,000 or something like that. 10 or 12,000 went back, were persuaded. Only 3,000 stubbornly insisted. And he's the one who was exterminated in the Battle of Nahrawan. That's it. Almost exclusively. Nobody survived. Few, maybe few survived and ran away. Few. There's no report about how many, maybe 5, 10, 20. All of them were exterminated. And the other one who woke up to the error and recognized that their point is not a valid point, they just sleep. And nobody fought them, left, went home. Nobody even asked them, are you going or not going? Khalas. Nobody even pursued them or asked them where they're going. That's the way it works. And this way, it would lead to stability, peacefulness, and happiness. All other ways will lead nowhere, as proven by history. You know they prove history. The ahkam shar'iyya are in Quran and Sunnah. If you follow them, you will get happiness. Minimum in akhirah, but usually happiness in akhirah and dunya also. Inevitably. That's the reason Allah said, if the Jews and Christians have established and committed probably to that to reveal to them in Torah and Injil, they would have eaten from there above them and below them. Rizq will come in a mysterious way. Because applying these rulings, no usury, no this and this, will make money circulate. Giving the obligatory charity will improve the situation of the needy, or giving it in the proper way. They will have money to spend. They will start maybe businesses and so on. Economy will grow more agriculture, more this. Everything grows. Because it was proper. That Torah and Injil, if established properly as happily revealed. Instead, they do not apply it and they corrupted it even and played havoc with the regulation and even with the injunctions. And there's that it will not have any effect. It will bring them down and down and down and down without end. The same with Muslim, but anybody. So the real salvation and real success is that go what are revealed, ascertain it is uncorrupted, understand it in comprehension, all of it. Allah said, "Aqamu Tawrat wal Injil." Do not transgress the Sabbath only. No, that's only one small injunction. Aqamu, establish the Tawrat and Injil, all of it. Maybe a bit mistakes here and there, human shortcoming, but essentially you have to make iqamah. If you do that, then you will eat from the above you and below you. لأكلوا من فوق رؤوسهم مثل الأرض. And Allah is telling the truth. It didn't happen in history because they did not establish it. A certain time it was relatively established time we called judges before they adopted this cursed monarchy. And in that time, generally, they were living good. They have less conflict, but human beings will have conflicts and problems. But it was there's no comparison between that time of the judges between Yusha bin Nun entering Palestine until they requested from their prophet Samuel to establish kingdom. That time was a relatively good and peaceful time. Although the way it's written is a bit also corrupted. They send back some of the corruption there. After that, it is what absolutely miserable time. Tunaica kings conquers from outside. A allied with B allied with the Pharaoh, C allies with the Ashurian attacking this, exterminating half of the country, taking 10 tribes in exile. Misery continuing. Because they not establish the Torah in totality. The same for every nation of revelation. You have to trust what Allah has revealed. If it's established in honesty as much as humanly possible, you will have income and wealth and care coming from top of you and below you, where you never expected. But only if you establish it. If you don't establish it, then blame yourself. Okay? So, long philosophical discussion, okay. Sermon, okay. But my advice, don't study issue of kufr, muharaba, and mix it with kufr and shirk. Bloodshed, killing, punishment is related to certain crimes well defined by Sharia. Muharaba, aggression. Not with kufr. And the evidence for that overwhelming in the Quran and in history. Absolutely in history. Absolutely established with certitude. Unfortunately, it was not seen by many fuqaha. They were blinded. Why? Because they didn't know it comprehensively. They take ayah out of context. Like, for example, say the ayah of the sword in Tawbah, which is invoked by many now and discussed plenty in the internet in the last 20, 30 years. We just read it to see it has nothing to do with killing the mushrikeen. It is forsaking those who broke their covenant. And at the end of it say, are you not going to fight those who broke their covenant and expel the messenger of the people? So the people of Mecca and their Allah, that's the one intended. It's not the people in the Amazon or people in India. Unfortunately, nobody reads the 10 ayahs. They read 1 or 2 ayahs, and that's it. And even if they read the 2 ayahs, it would have been sufficient. But they take only that's it. That's a crime against Allah and His Messenger and His revelation. But many fall that way. Others argued for naskh. But naskh should not be argued unless you are compelled. There's no other way to let the various ruling work except by advocating naskh. Anything else must be a general restriction or specialization or things like that. You say only naskh there's no way you can have it otherwise. And they were very liberal. Ibn Hazm displayed in mind the issue of naskh is very loose and very catastrophic. It's very catastrophic. Very few things are naskh and compelled by the text and by the necessity of reason that hukum must have gone, must be mansukh. Otherwise, it is still valid. You shouldn't argue for naskh until you are forced to. There's no other solution. Okay? A long sermon that I hope it has some benefit aspect. So, general rule, do not get stuck with the issue of kufr and related to fighting and moving against ruler or unseating them or accounting them. That's secondary. That's completely secondary. It has nothing. And even with the rulers, it's not matter if he is a kafir or not. It's matter if he is applying kufr, and that's meaning applying or making injunction with shirk with certitude. كفرا بواحد عندكم فيه من الله برهان. Or he command you to do a ma'asiyah in public order. You know with certainty a ma'asiyah, or he himself say, this is a ma'asiyah, but I command you. That's the kufr bawah. Then you have to say no. And then there is a process. Ultimately, if the process does not work with judicial ruling, etc., and he insists, most likely he will resist and have his own soldier around him protecting him and sending his tanks. Then he is a resisting group and he is harbi. Then the safe will have to take care of his neck. That's it. Because he's resisting but force. Let go is kafir or mu'min. That's irrelevant. But before that has to be established, that is with absolutely certain that this is commanding a ma'asiyah, and he knows he's a ma'asiyah, and saying, like some will say, torture this one, but torture is haram. I tell you, torture him. Let God come down. That's kufr sarih. Commanding it in public from the ruler. This one said, no, I cannot obey you. You stop here, otherwise we'll fight you, or we'll go to a court to settle the matter if there's a dispute about legality or not legality. Usually, such tyrannical world will have their guards and so on, a bunch of criminals as bad as them, and they will resist by force. Then you use force and strike their neck. and break their skulls. That's the only way to get. Disregarding if they're kafir or not kafir, the act itself can be ruled by necessity and the command itself as being invalid. That's what would count. Does he become, if someone will tell you, torture, say it's haram, say torture, don't worry, I don't care about your God, he's definitely kafir by that. But that's not the issue. The issue, he commanded that, and you should disobey. That's the issue. And if you use force, you counter force. Simple. Otherwise, a competent court ruling is available and he's chucked out of office. If he goes, alhamdulillah, no problem. If he doesn't go, resist by force, then he resists the good. Harb. Because of resistance, not because kufr or iman. That's settled already before. That's the way to go. So don't go into this death trap. That's a death trap. That's what most jihadi, so-called jihadi, got in it and sank down and destroyed themselves. That's it. That's what finished them. That's what finished them. Besides also reading the injunctions in a haphazard way. Let me give you an example. When in Arabia, some Qaeda people worked, invoking أخرج المشركين من جزيرة العرب. Even the hadith is invalid, but let's assume it's invalid, it's ثابت by tawatur. The command أخرجوا addressed to جميع المسلمين. Now in جزيرة العرب, who has the authority to admit and leave? The government. The government, being kafir or Muslim is irrelevant, admitted these mushrikeen or these kuffar, these army, these. So the address should be to the government, get them out. You don't go and get them out by yourself. So the government, get them out. It's the injunction. The government say, no, the injunction is invalid. The hadith is bad. Then we can discuss that. If that's all exhausted and they establish with tawatur that it's valid, it's invalid, by the way. I just tell you this. Unfortunately, for Bin Laden, he invoked that hadith very much. It's invalid. It's not true hadith. It's correct. It's broken. It's not probable. Anyway, after that established, now you have to get them out. Fulfill the union. No, I'm not getting them out. We'll force you to get them out. He resists now, then he's harbi. Break his skull. That's it. What they did, they attacked the Americans and the barracks. And usually the barracks have Muslims and have Christian, have other non-combatant, non-American, Lebanese, Palestinian, so on. And they got all the one who should be attacked, the government, was not attacked, even though the address from the beginning. Because they read the hadith, I'm assuming it's valid and authority, they read it upside down, unfortunately. Besides, the hadith is invalid, but leave that, assume it is valid. They read it upside down. Akhriju, addressing the ummah, addressing the community, not addressing you alone. And the addressee for that, getting people out and fight and non-fight, who is usually the one in authority. These are the one who have the armies, these are the one who call for fight, these are the one who organize a fight, primarily. And if neglect and all argument with them and advice does not work, and confrontation does not work, and they resist with force, then they should be fought. Not the American who said, I came by invitation of your government. I don't know who is the government. Are you the government? The government admitted me. I have a visa from them. Why are you regarding me as an enemy and killing me? And he's right to say that. If you want to kill anybody, go kill your ruler. Don't kill me. And he's right if he said that. And some of them said that. And many who have became collateral damage in this mess in the 1995, 96, and early this century, many Palestinians, they said, Wallahi, if they have done this bombing and so on to the Saudi Palestinians, we would be dancing and supporting them. But they bombed us because we happen to be working, for example, as a cook or a doctor in an American base. I have to make a living, and I work as a cook. And the American there seem to be legitimately invited to the government. If that's not okay, the government is responsible, not me. Not even the American himself. America did not come by tanks and enter the country by force. No, it's not. By permission and invitation by the government. So deal with your government, not deal with the wrong target, for example. But how come that? Because you don't apply the hukm correctly and know who is the proper addressee. In that case, if we have to add insult to injury, the hadith is invalid, but let's assume it's valid. Still, it's misapplied. The wrong and most miserable, and as a result that all activities were not supported by the public. It ended nowhere, and they ended being eliminated and harming the Ummah more than they benefited it. Hopefully they were sincere and so on, and they will be forgiven for their wrong ijtihad, hopefully. But that's all what we can say. So inna Allah wa ilayhi raji'un. And they come from starting with such a mistake and ask a question was irrelevant. Like one of the questions the usual jihadi ask, what is the ruling about the one who is unknown, majhul al-hal, his state of affairs is unknown in the domain of kufr? So why do you know to know his state? How can a majhul hal? Why do you know his state? If he comes to ask you for your daughter, you are a father, and say, give my daughter, then he will not remain majhul. You will check him. You will know, is he Muslim or kafir, is good or bad, is capable of marriage or not. So he's not majhul hal. The only thing I can imagine that you find the body lying on the street, dead, and from his dress is not clear he's a Muslim or kafir or something like that. What to do with him? Okay, this is an easy issue. Is the question how to bury him? Or we can look. If he's near a Muslim area, we can assume he's a Muslim, bury him with the Muslimin. If he's in a questionable area, we ask authority to settle the situation and check him. Or just leave him, or bury him with the Muslimin, just precautionary. It doesn't harm if he's a kafir and buried the Muslim on the innocent assumption. And the word will not go, nothing will happen. So why do you know to majhul had and classify him as a kafir or Muslim? We don't know. And they come the basic ruling that he's a kafir until proven that he's a Muslim. Or a basic ruling he's a Muslim until proven a kafir. All of these is nonsense. It's empty statement which makes no sense, but does not bring any result in interaction dunya and has no relation with what Allah knows in Yawm Qiyamah. Because what Allah knows, that will come in Yawm Qiyamah, and He knows better than you and even the dead ones. So what's your business with that? Why you're upset about that? Just leave him. If you think I cannot leave him like that, I have to bury him, and I have only the Muslim cemetery, go and bury him in the Muslim cemetery. You don't need to know his hal. Because it's not good to leave a human being, a body, even disturbing the people, rotting and stinking and so on. Disgraceful for the environment and for the person himself, as if he's thrown like an animal. No, even animals should be disposed of something a little bit more cleanly. So do that. You don't need to go into philosophical discussion. ما هو الحكم في مجهول الحال في دار الكفر. It's kind of questions that. So my advice, if you want to ask a question, see what's the benefit of it in dunya and akhirah? Does it solve anything, or just purely academic for enjoyment? If it's for enjoyment, no problem. This seems to be intriguing philosophically. Well, I can tell you, okay, it's intriguing, but we have more important things. But leave it, maybe, inshallah. After 1 month, we may have a special halaqah for that and do some research and we can discuss it. I don't mind. You will judge by yourself. Does it contribute to my activity now, to my family, to my life, to my carrying da'wah, while preparing for akhirah? It doesn't do it just for enjoyment. Yeah, enjoyment is required, and sometimes you need to do some mathematical, like crossword puzzle, just to relieve the pressure and the stress of life. That's nice, no problem. But it's not a priority, because we have things of more priority. That's just a general scheme. Not because someone asks us a question and so on, we just repeat the question the same way. Good. Sermon end. Any other question, Rash?
No problem, inshallah. I think that we'll call it a day there.
Big rant or rave.
That's good. That's good.
Rave or
Okay. Same again next Tuesday, inshallah, recording, inshallah. And
that's
same
good. That's
week,
private. Okay. Inshallah. Okay. So we conclude, inshallah. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نستغفرك ونتوب إليك. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وآل إبراهيم في العالمين إنك حميد مجيد، وبارك على محمد وآل محمد كما باركت على إبراهيم وآل إبراهيم في العالمين إنك حميد مجيد، وتصبحون على خير، والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.